Chapter 413. I'm afraid there's only one person who dares to touch the goods of the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce, Wei Chou said with narrowed eyes. Who? Lin Muyu asked. Situ Sin. Wei Chou's eyes lit up. The entire slum area in the east and west of Lanyan City is controlled by the Heaven Execution Society, established by this person. From human trafficking to the employment of wandering mercenaries, even the Imperial Army has to give him some face. There's such a thing? Lin Muyu looked at Feng Jixing and said, General Feng, Lanyan City is the territory of your Imperial Army. How can you tolerate the existence of such a person? It's not as simple as you think. Feng Jixing touched his nose and said, after 3 years of recuperation and population migration, Lanyan City has recovered to a megacity with a population of 5 million. The scale of the city is far larger than you can imagine. The slum area stretches for hundreds of miles and is not under the jurisdiction of the 20,000 Imperial Army. On the other hand, the Heaven Execution Society has more than 100,000 members and has spontaneously formed a self-growing model. Although the Heaven Execution Society has also done some bad things, they have unknowingly solved the food, water, clothing, and other problems of the slum area. Qin Yin blinked and said with a smile, Brother Yu, our current military and financial strength are quite limited, so we have allowed Situ Sun and the Heaven Execution Society to grow in power in the east and west of the city. But don't worry, this is just General Feng's tactic of rearing pigs. Once the time is ripe, the Heaven Execution Society will provide us with a lot of manpower and material resources. So it's because the Empire is unable to govern? Lin Muyu pondered for a moment and said with a smile, It doesn't matter. Let me go meet this Situ Sun and see who he is. How dare he rob my goods? You be careful. Feng Jixing cautiously warned, Situ Sun is not the only one in the Heaven Execution Society. He has a younger sister called Situ Shui. She is the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Group, the top mercenary group in Lanyan City. You should have heard of her. Lin Muyu was stunned. Situ Shui? Does sound familiar. If you're going to the Heaven Execution Association's headquarters, you'll need to bring more people with you. That way you'll be able to protect yourself if a conflict breaks out. Got it, don't worry big brother Feng. Lin Muyu turned around and cupped her fists. She bowed to Qin Yin and excused herself. Then she led Wei Chou, Jin Xiaotang and the others out of Zetian Palace. Commander, how many brothers of the Longdan army camp should we bring? Wei Chou asked. We don't need too many. 1,000 soldiers will do. Let Fengxi and Su Jiantao lead the troops. Yes. 2 hours later, the cavalry of the Courage of the Dragon Battalion galloped out of the camp. Under Lin Muyu and Wei Chou's lead, they headed straight for Dongqing District. The headquarters of the Heaven Execution Association was in the center of the slums in Dongqing District. At the same time, it was also the poorest and most densely populated place in Lanyan City. As for Tongtian Street, where Lin Muyu usually resided, it was actually a place where nobles and wealthy commoners gathered. After galloping for more than half an hour, the buildings on both sides of the street gradually disappeared. They were replaced by low-rise houses that were closely connected to each other. Many of them were made of wood, as if they could be washed away by a heavy rain. The people in the slums looked indifferent as they watched the army of the Longdan army camp gallop past them. It was as if they had nothing to do with it. Not far ahead was the food market and slave market. Although the Qin Empire seemed to be very prosperous, it was still in the transitional stage between a slave society and a feudal society. The people's hearts were cold, and a group of slaves stood in a row like goods for the merchants who came and went to pick and choose. It was as if black, white, fat and skinny were all bargaining chips. Lin Muyu frowned and urged his horse forward slowly. Jin Xiaotang seemed to see through his thoughts. She smiled and said, Brother Yu, you still can't stand the slave trade? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. People are born equal. Jin Xiaotang was a little surprised. She stuck out her tongue and smiled. But in this world it is not like this. Some people are born to be emperors like Her Highness. Some people are born to be slaves like these people in front of us. Lin Muyu said, if we were to release these slaves, give them abandoned land for them to cultivate and harvest a portion of their food, wouldn't the value they could produce be even greater? Jin Xiaotang was stunned again. Maybe Brother Yu is right, but Xiaotang has never thought about this. Wei Chou said in a low voice, Commander, do you want us to use the funds of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce to buy the strong men in the slave market at a low price and grant them freedom so that they can pick up weapons and serve the country loyally? No. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, this will only make the slave traders more aggressive. One day I will change everything from the source. Wei Chou was stunned and didn't say anything. Perhaps it was as Lin Muyu said, this situation needed a change. What could be changed? Nothing more than an imperial edict from Empress Qin Yin to grant amnesty to all the slaves in the world, grant them complete equality and compensate and appease the masters of those slaves. This would change everything fundamentally. But this needed time, a lot of time. The sound of galloping horses could be heard. After passing through several city gates, they finally arrived at the heart of the slums. From afar, a patrolling knight could be seen leading a warhorse over. His face was full of fat. He bowed respectfully to Lin Muyu and said, "This subordinate greets Lord Commander. May I know who this general is?" Wei Chou pointed to the insignia of the Longdan army camp on his chest and said, "We are from the Longdan army camp." The patrolling knight naturally knew who this handsome commander was. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Commander Yu." Lin Muyu nodded and asked, "What's your name? What is your responsibility here?" The patrolling knight replied, "My name is Zhang Lei and I belong to the Ministry of War. I am responsible for patrolling this street." "You are the only one on such a big street?" Lin Muyu was surprised. Yes, the Ministry of War doesn't have that many soldiers to share the workload. Furthermore, there are thousands of streets like this in the East District. It is very troublesome to patrol, so there are very few soldiers assigned. "I guess the security here isn't very good, right?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Zhang Lei was silent out of fear. He cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Commander Yu, very few people cause trouble here. Commander, please investigate this." "Alright, let's not talk so much. Bring me to the headquarters of the Tianju Association. I want to see Situ Senior." "Ah?" Zhang Lei was aghast. "What? You don't dare to go?" Wei Chou sneered. Zhang Lei gritted his teeth and said, "Then? I will only bring you to the entrance of the headquarters of the Tianju Association. I will not go in." "Alright, let's go." "Yes." Zhang Lei mounted his horse and led Lin Muyu and the others to the end of the street. At the end of the street, there were no longer any poor people. Instead, there was a group of people dressed in embroidered robes. A black tower rose from the ground amidst the dilapidated buildings. It stood out like a crane among a flock of chickens in the slums. This was the headquarters of the Heaven Execution Association. Wei Chou, Fingxi, and the others couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The Tianju Association was indeed extraordinary. The grandeur of this building was already comparable to a noble's mansion. When Zhang Lei arrived at the front of the mansion, several people wearing cyan armor laughed loudly. "Hi, Lieutenant Zhang Lei, why are you here again? What, the hot and sour rice I treated you to last time was not hot and sour enough?" Zhang Lei's face was ashen as he urged his horse to take several steps back. The disciples of the Tianju Association rushed out from the courtyard, grabbed the reins and forcibly pulled Zhang Lei off his horse. One of them laughed loudly. "You dare meddle in the affairs of our Tianju Association? You must be tired of living. Come. Kowtow to this grandpa a few times and I will let you go back to your official duties." Zhang Lei's expression was extremely ugly as he looked at Lin Muyu and the others for help. At this time, the disciples of the Tianju Association turned around and saw 1,000 elite soldiers from the Longdan army camp standing behind them. Their faces immediately turned pale. Lin Muyu dismounted and smiled faintly. "Imperial Longdan army camp, Lin Muyu requests an audience with Situ Senator. Please pass on the message for me." You guys," the leader's face was ashen. "The Imperial army never comes to our Lanshui Street. What is the Longdan army camp thinking?" Wei Chou's expression turned cold. He unsheathed his sword halfway and growled, "What are you waiting for? Do you want to die?" Yes, wait a moment." The ruffians let go of Zhang Lei and rushed into the mansion in a panic. Zhang Lei said with a face full of shame, "Commander Yu, this subordinate has embarrassed the Imperial army." "It's fine." Lin Muyu said with a gentle expression. "It's the Ministry of Military Affairs that assigned too few people here, and the Tianju Association is too arrogant. It's not your fault, but you're the one suffering here." "This subordinate isn't suffering," Zhang Lei said in a trembling voice. "Go, leave the matters here to me." "Yes." About the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the Longdan army camp outside the mansion had become extremely impatient. Many people had drawn their swords and were ready to charge in at any time to start a massacre. The group of Tianju Association guards outside the gate turned pale with fright, not daring to breathe loudly. These people from the Tianju Association could only ride roughshod over the civilians. Once they encountered a regular army like the Longdan army camp, they would immediately be scared out of their wits. It was at this moment that a martial artist wearing fiery red armor and a long sword walked out. He cupped his fists and smiled respectfully at Lin Muyu. So it's Commander Yu who has come. I'm one of the 5 stewards of the Tianju Association, Zhonyan. Steward Situ Sen has already prepared a banquet. Please come in with us, Commander Yu. Many thanks. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. She placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and stepped inside. Wei Chou, Fengshi, and the others dismounted and led the Longdan army camp inside. Zhonyan hurriedly turned around with an awkward expression. Commander Yu, please forgive me. The Tianju Association's headquarters is too small and can't accommodate too many people. So, only 5 of you can go in. Is that so? Lin Muyu smiled and said, Wei Chou, bring 3 people and follow me in. Fengshi, Su Jiantao, the 2 of you guard outside with everyone else. Yes. Fengshi and Su Jiantao said in unison. Wei Chou smiled and said, if the commander and I don't come out in 2 hours, return to the camp and gather 20,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp to raise this Tianju Association to the ground. Yes. Protect Xiaotang well. Lin Muyu instructed and stepped onto the stone steps of the Tianju Association's headquarters without looking back. Chapter 4:14. The gate of the headquarters was tightly shut and covered with spikes. It was guarded by 8 guards. One of them quickly stepped forward and reached out to block the gate, saying, My lord, please follow our rules and remove your weapons before entering the headquarters. Remove weapons? Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. You bunch of gangsters, who gave you the right to remove the weapons of the Empire's commander? We. The guard was actually speechless. Zhonyan coughed and said, All right, let Commander Yu bring his weapons in. This is how we treat our guests. Yes. With a creak, the gate slowly opened. Although it was daytime, there were many braziers and candles burning inside. Smoke lingered in the air, making Lin Muyu feel like she was in the Hall of Chivalry. She stepped into the headquarters step by step. When her eyes adjusted to the brightness, she found that it was a meeting hall with a disc-shaped basin in the middle and raised platforms on both sides. The platforms were filled with people and there was wine and meat on the tables. Lin Muyu released the spirit pulse technique and found that most of these people were at the Earth Realm. Lanyan City was indeed a city of hidden talents. There was actually a group of Earth Realm experts gathered here. She led Wei Chou and the others into the disc and could only look up at the person at the host's table. It was a young man in tiger skin armor. He was less than 30 years old and looked quite handsome. He stared at Lin Muyu like a hawk and suddenly stood up. He held a wine glass and smiled, saying, I was wondering who it was. So it's the general of Lanyan City. You're Situ Sin? Lin Muyu asked proudly. She was surrounded by gusts of wind and the white imperial forest cloak behind her fluttered even though there was no wind. She didn't look angry. Yes. Situ Sin put down his wine glass and smiled. And you are? Lin Muyu. Oh, so it's the famous Commander Yu of Iha country. Situ Sin cupped his fists and bowed. His bow didn't seem pretentious at all and was truly respectful. May I know why Commander Rain has come to visit Tianju? We have a batch of white diamond ornaments we bought from Qihai City. They were robbed outside the northern city of Lanyan City. I wonder if it was your association? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Unexpectedly, Situ Sin confessed and laughed. Yes, I did order the looting, but I thought it was the noble ladies of Lanyan City who bought the goods. I didn't expect it to be Commander Yu's goods. Lin Muyu said, These white diamonds are used to refine white diamond arrowheads to fight against the demon race and the Iha kingdom. I hope your excellency can return them in full. Situ Sin kept muttering to himself, but a young girl sitting beside him raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, What a joke. You think you can return it just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Lin Muyu looked up. This girl was dressed in military attire with 2 crescent blades hanging from her waist. They didn't look like weapons from the Middle Earth, but she was very pretty and somewhat similar to Situ Senator she should be Situ Shui. Lin Muyu smiled and asked, What's wrong, North Ridge Mercenary Group leader? Situ Shui gently pulled out one of the crescent blades and smiled. Since Commander Rain knows me, Situ Shui, then you should know my style. If you can't win against my 2 blades, then don't mention returning the goods. More than a dozen of our men died in order to steal your goods. You killed people for their goods and sold them for profit. Lin Muyu raised her long sword lightly without unsheathing the dragon's spiritual sword. With a confident and arrogant attitude she said, Miss Situ, come at me. If I can defeat you after unsheathing my sword, it'll be my loss. Arrogant. Situ Shui jumped down and raised her 2 blades, slashing down with the radiance of battle energy. Lin Muyu's martial soul surged, and the golden gourd wall broke out of her body, illuminating the entire meeting hall. The dragon spirit and the scabbard parried Situ Shue's double blades, but Situ Shue's movements were very agile. She immediately changed her move when her attack missed. One of her blades parried the dragon spirit, and the other slashed towards Lin Muyu's abdomen ruthlessly. What a fierce little girl! Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. Dragon chi lingered around her left arm, and she raised her true dragon arm horizontally to parry Situ Shue's blade. At the same time she turned her right wrist, and the dragon spirit cleverly spun in the air to parry Situ Shue's blade. The hilt of the sword fell down with a loud bang, directly hitting towards Situ Shue's shoulder. In your dreams. Situ Shue's beautiful face was filled with fighting spirit, and with a single step she dodged the attack from the dragon spirit's hilt. Raising both of her blades horizontally, they shined like snowflakes as they slashed towards Lin Muyu's lower back. However, Lin Muyu's speed was even faster. She used the falling star step to dodge Situ Shue's attack, and at the same time her battle boots were also filled with whirlwind do chi as she kicked out. Situ Shue could feel the power of this kick, and she hurriedly raised her blades in front of her chest to parry. But Lin Muyu's strength was too much stronger than hers. With a loud bang, Situ Shue's blades flew out of her hands, and she fell on the spectator's stand in a slightly awkward manner. Protect the leader. A group of high-ranking generals of the North Ridge Mercenary Corps stood up, pulled out their weapons and pounced over. Lin Muyu didn't dodge and she didn't even unsheath the dragon spirit. She directly swept over with whirlwind battle energy, and the attack carried the power of the god-binding chains, created an arc of energy impact, blowing more than a dozen generals away. Even the candles on the spectator stand were extinguished. Standing on the round disc with wisps of golden god-binding chains around her, Lin Muyu raised her head and asked proudly, "Who else wants to try?" Everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. It was common knowledge that Situ Shue was at the first level of the Heaven Realm, but Situ Shue was defeated in 3 moves by Lin Muyu without unsheathing her blade. The others definitely had no chance of winning. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of applause came from Situ's senator. He stood up proudly and said, "The 4 heroes of Lanyan are indeed worthy of their reputation. Situ Shue must be convinced of her defeat. But, Commander Yu, we, the Heaven Execution Society, have our own rules. I can return the white diamond to you, but you must win against me, Situ-sen, with this sword in my hand. Do you dare?" "Why not?" Lin Muyu slowly pulled out the dragon spirit and smiled proudly. "If I can't convince you, Situ-sen, how can I convince the world?" What a big tone. I like it. Situ-sen slowly pulled out his blade. It also had the soul of a saint beast. It was a sacred weapon. The slums also had a sacred weapon. Moreover, there were 3 milky white fighting spirits hovering above Situ-sen's blade. He was an expert at the middle level of the 3rd level of the Heaven Realm. Lanyan City was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Looking at Lin Muyu, Situ-sen said lightly, "If Commander you can defeat me, Situ-sen, in 3 moves, you win." "Okay." Lin Muyu nodded. "Let's begin." Situ-sen roared and raised his fighting spirit to the peak. In fact, Lin Muyu's injury had not healed, and the strength of her fighting spirit might not be stronger than Situ-sen's. This was really an evenly matched battle. The only variable was the moves. Lin Muyu's moves were obviously far above Situ-sen's. Buzz. Raging flames surged. Lin Muyu's first move was a killing move, using fire to control the sword. Faced with the dragon spirit sword that was rotating at high speed and surging with true dragon origin fire, Situ-sen naturally had to go all out. With a loud shout, do chi gathered on the blade of the sword. Rays of purple light appeared around his body like a whirlpool. Go! As Lin Muyu launched her sword, Situ-sen quickly retreated as if he was escaping. However, a purple whirlpool of power was revolving around him, distorting the power of the dragon spirit fire spiral break. The next moment, Situ-sen roared and actually reversed the situation, blasting the dragon spirit sword at Lin Muyu. Damn! Heart-turning art. Situ-sen roared and the dragon spirit sword counterattacked Lin Muyu. How is this possible? Lin Muyu was stunned. She hurriedly opened her right palm and the power of stars surged. With a roar, she forcefully smashed the dragon spirit sword to the ground. Bang! Stone chips flew everywhere and the shockwave forced those who were close to her to retreat. At the same time, the power of stars gathered in her right fist and suddenly jumped up. Lin Muyu adopted a condescending posture. The conference hall looked like it was penetrated by countless stars. The stars were shining all over the sky, and they gathered into Lin Muyu's palm strength. It fell from the sky. It was the third move of the star art, 5 mountains descend from the sky. And this time it was really the 5 mountains descend from the sky. The power of Lin Muyu's palm was no less than the pressure of a mountain. Since Situ Sen had the ability of Big Dipper, let's see if he had the magical power of turning mountains. Facing Lin Muyu's great palm strength, Situ Sen's face was aghast. He held the long sword horizontally in front of his chest, and forcibly stirred the heart-turning art's power. His face was pale. When the 5 mountains descend from the sky got closer and closer, Situ Sen's face became paler and paler, but he continued to stir the heart-turning art's power, trying to divert the power of the 5 mountains descend from the sky. However, in the next second, Situ Sen had already given up. The power of the stars was like a surging river, and it was impossible to divert it, let alone use it for his own use. The stone tiles under his feet were constantly cracking under the pressure of the 5 mountains descend from the sky, and even the skin between his thumb and index finger was bleeding. At this time, Situ Sen finally gritted his teeth and shouted, "I lost." Swoosh! The star power that Lin Muyu condensed in the center of his palm suddenly loosened, and smoothly slid over Situ Sen's head. After floating to the ground, he gently swung his palm, and the terrifying power that made Situ Sen feel as if he was in purgatory dissipated into indigo blue stardust, which was a spectacular sight. Huff, huff, huff. Situ Sen kept panting and his face was livid. "May I ask, Commander Yu, what is this power? How could it be so heavy and vigorous?" "The skill that I cultivate is called star art, and it originates from the star power in the sky." Lin Muyu lightly explained and then smiled. "Lord Situ Sen is really amazing. There are not many people who can make me use the star art." Situ Sen's face was full of shame and he cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Commander Yu, for not killing me. Situ Sen appreciates it." He was also a broad-minded person and he spoke his mind. "Now, can you return the white diamond to our purple flower chamber of commerce?" Lin Muyu smiled and asked. "Of course." Chapter 4:15. Situ Sen looked at his subordinates and said, "Men, bring all the white diamonds from the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce here and return them to Commander Yu." "Yes." The subordinates cupped their fists and went to move the goods. Situ Sen turned around and said, "Commander Yu, would you do me the honor of having a drink with us at the Tianju Association?" "Sure." Lin Muyu was interested in befriending him and naturally nodded. "Great. This way, please." Situ Sen led Lin Muyu to the host's table and set up another table with good wine and meat. Lin Muyu stayed behind to drink and raised her eyebrows. "Wei Cho, go and tell everyone to lift their guard and send someone over to move the goods." "Yes, Commander." Wei Cho turned around and left. Not long after Lin Muyu sat down, Situ Shui came over. She looked valiant and heroic. She raised her cup with both hands and smiled. "I was disrespectful just now. I hope, Commander, you will forgive me. This cup is a toast of apology from Situ Shui." "Why would I?" "You don't have to take it to heart, Mississippi." Lin Muyu raised her cup and drained it in one gulp. She turned to look at Situ Sen and said, "Sir Situ Sen, you are so skilled that few people in the empire are your match. Why did you end up in a place like this, preying on the people and acting like a tyrant?" "I am ashamed." Situ Sen looked ashamed and said, "I was originally one of the captaincy of the Tianchong Legion. 4 years ago I was seriously injured by Luo Lan's subordinate, Yan Li, in the battle at Lanyan City. Therefore, I hid in the slums to avoid the disaster. Later, I felt ashamed to meet the Empress again, so I hid in the slums, killed the original in charge of the Tianju Association, and made myself the leader." "I see." Lin Muyu nodded. "So it's Yan Li." Situ Sen's face was full of respect as he said, "I heard that not long ago, Commander, you took back the head of Commander Qin Lei from the Yihe Kingdom and killed dozens of generals from the Yihe Kingdom, including Yan Li. Is it true?" "It's true." Lin Muyu patted the armor on her chest and said, "My injuries haven't fully healed yet, it's all thanks to Lu Zhan and Yan Li." As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Sir Situ Sen, the changing heart mantra that you used can turn your opponent's strength into your own. It's very mysterious and it sounds familiar. I seem to have heard of it somewhere before." Situ Sen shuddered and said, "Commander Yu, is there something you can't say?" "No, it's just that." Situ Sen looked like he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Situ Shui couldn't stand it anymore and directly said, "Commander Yu, my brother and I are the descendants of the famous General Situ Cheong of the Empire. However, my brother has been depressed in the Tianchong army. General Du Hai has no intention of promoting my brother for many years, so my brother has the intention of retreating. During the Battle of Lanyan City, my brother wasn't afraid of death. Please investigate clearly, Lin Muyu said softly. It doesn't matter. During the Battle of Lanyan City, everyone was running for their lives in a daze. Who could care about others? However, now that Empress Qinyin has ascended to the throne, an expert like you, Situ Sen, is living in the slums of Lanyan City. Don't you feel that you're useless? I know, but... Situ Sen said with some distress, I'm afraid that the imperial court is full of treacherous people, and there's no place for people like me. That won't happen. Lin Muyu said confidently, as long as you're willing, I can recommend you to Her Highness. With your ability and appeal, I believe you can build a new army. You should also know that the demons have fallen from the sky and occupied the eastern regions of Lingdong Province, Tongtian Province, and Sangnan Province. The empire is in need of manpower now. Situ Sen's eyes lit up and he said, I don't need Commander Yu's recommendation. What? Lin Muyu was stunned. Situ Sen suddenly took a big gulp of hard liquor. His eyes were burning as he said, although I'm not in the imperial court, I know how dirty it is. Lord Lan and Lord Yun each occupy half of the empire, and the Empress lives in the cracks. If I really build an imperial army, it will most likely be controlled by either Lord Lan or Lord Yun. I, Situ Sen, have been open and above board all my life, and I don't want to be that kind of lowly person. So, Commander Yu, please accept me. I'm willing to call on the brothers of the Tianju Society to join the Longdan army camp and follow you to conquer the world. You're really willing to follow me? Lin Muyu was stunned. Situ Sen nodded. Yes, but... He laughed again. But the brothers of the Tianju Society are not easy to deal with. If you want us to join the Imperial Army, it depends on your sincerity. After all, there's no free pancake in this world and there's no free sex either. At the side, Situ Shui pouted and said, Brother, you're so rude. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. You and your brothers can also get the treatment that the Longdan army camp can get. When the time is right, all of you will become members of the Longdan army camp. Situ Sen nodded. These are not problems. If it's to kill the demons and show our loyalty to the Empire, we definitely won't have any objections. It's just that, most of my brothers come from poor backgrounds and many of their sisters and brothers are slaves. Situ Sen only asks for one thing. If you can get an imperial edict from Her Highness to pardon their families, we will definitely follow you to our deaths. Pardon? Lin Muyu furrowed his brows and remained silent. What? Commander, you don't dare? Situ Sen squinted his eyes and asked with a smile. What's there to be afraid of? Lin Muyu nodded. I will tell Her Highness the truth, but you must also abide by my promise. From today onwards, your men can no longer do evil, bully the people, and rob. Otherwise, if the Longdan army camp catches them, they will kill every single one of them. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Situ Sen cupped his fists. Rest assured, sir. Please trust me, Situ Senator, I won't let you down. Lin Muyu raised her head and looked at Situ Shui. Suddenly, Situ Shui's heart was beating wildly under the gaze of this handsome commander. She blushed and said, Sir, do you want to take in my North Ridge Mercenary Regiment as well? That's right. Lin Muyu nodded. The Empire is on the brink of life and death. Your North Ridge Mercenary Regiment is the strongest in Lanyan City. Do you still want to occupy a mountain and wait to reap the benefits? Miss Situ Shui, I can tell you the truth. If the steel wall of Sangnan Province fails, the demon clan will definitely massacre every inch of the empire. No matter which mountain the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment hides in, they won't be able to escape this disaster. Hee, Commander, don't scare me. Situ Shui patted her chest and pretended to be extremely scared. She continued to ask with a smile, Commander Yu, are the demon clan really as powerful as the legends say? Yes, even a sanctuary expert like Du Hai was killed. You can imagine how powerful the demon clan is. Lin Muyu said. Then has Commander Yu fought with Lei Chong? Yes. What are the odds of winning? No chance of winning. Lin Muyu answered honestly. It can't be? Situ Shui stuck out her tongue and said, even Commander Yu with her amazing cultivation, is no match for them? Yes. Lin Muyu looked at her with a smile. Let's get back to business. I am now one of the generals of the Empire. I have enough power to decide these things. Miss Situ Shui, are you willing to lead the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment to join our Longdan army camp? Well, Situ Shui said awkwardly, I don't have the final say on this. If you want all of them to join, it will be a little difficult. First of all, they must have enough money to settle down. What do you mean by that? We mercenaries are different from you soldiers. We can only stay on the mountain and don't even have a home. Many of our brothers don't even have a wife. So, we need at least 200 Jinyin coins to settle down their families in a house around Lanyan City. Otherwise, they won't give up the mercenary commission and become soldiers of the Empire. I see. How many people are there in the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment? More than 15,000. All right. Lin Muyu looked at Situ Shui and said, "It's a deal. I will take out 3 million Jinyin coins and you must lead the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment to join the Longdan Army camp." All right. Situ Shui shook Lin Muyu's hand and said, "It's a deal." As she spoke, she blushed again. Lin Muyu couldn't help but look at Situ Sen and asked, "How did your sister become the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment? Isn't it simple?" Situ Sen chuckled. She started as an ordinary mercenary and fought her way up. Finally, she defeated the old leader with 2 swords. After the old leader retired, it was her turn. I see. It was almost dusk when Lin Muyu and Situ Sen finally came to an agreement. Although Situ Sen was a straightforward person, he also gave a lot of conditions. On the other hand, Situ Shui's conditions were simpler. She was willing to join the Longdan army camp as long as she had the money. However, she and her brother had to be given the position of captaincy. This was simple. Lin Muyu could use the seal to confer the title of commander. Under the setting sun, Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and Fengxi slowly left the slums. "Commander, do you really trust Situ Sen?" Wei Chou asked worriedly. "Trust?" Lin Muyu nodded and suddenly smiled. "Although this person isn't easy to deal with his cultivation and charisma, he will be a great help if I can use him. No matter what, our Longdan army camp needs people like him." "And the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment, Situ Shui. Have you decided to recruit this group of mercenaries?" "Yes." "What are we going to do now?" "To see Her Highness and request for an imperial edict to truly subdue Situ Sen and Situ Shui. Give the order to expand the Longdan army camp and build another camp in the wilderness north of the city. The city really can't garrison so many people." "Yes, I understand." Chapter 416. That night, Lin Muyu received the pardon edict from Qin Yin. She was extraordinarily efficient. She brought Fengxi, Su Jiantao, and the others to the slums in the east of Lanyan City and read the edict to everyone. Then she gave the edict to Situ Senator. With this edict, he could pardon any servant related to the Heaven Judgment Society. As for the gold hun coins, it took Jin Shouting half a day to gather 3 million gold hun coins. However, in exchange, Lin Muyu had to forge some dream of returning peaks and a batch of weapons for the Chamber of Commerce. She had nothing better to do anyway. 6 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Muyu's injuries had recovered by 90%. Her strength had mostly recovered, and there were signs that she was stronger than before. Her battle chi had become thicker and purer. As her strength improved, the God-binding chains and martial soul gourd also became stronger day by day. This was something he could feel. Early in the morning, the holy temple was silent. Frost covered the ground on this winter morning, and the temperature dropped sharply. It was so cold that people shivered. It seemed that the first snow of the year was about to arrive. In the center of the hall, a purple stone was placed there, surrounded by Guyang, Zhou Bailey Fu, and Jing Shanhe, the 4 deacons Guyang, Zhou Bailey Fu, and Jing Shanhe. In addition, even Chu Chu was there. He was reading a thick book with a face full of suspicion. "Chu, did you find it?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. "Not yet." Chu Chu shook his head. Lin Muyu smiled. "Why don't we forget about it? There's no need to name my martial soul, right?" "That won't do." Gu Yang's tone left no room for argument. You are now the Grand Deacon, the soul of the Empire's cultivation world. If we can't even identify your martial soul and name it, then I'm afraid the Myriad Soul Canon will no longer be the #1 canon in the world regarding martial souls." "Okay then." Lin Muyu drank her tea. After a while, Chu Chu finally lost his patience. He closed the book and said, "I'm afraid. There was no mention of Yu's martial spirit in the books of our ancestors. In my opinion, why don't we test the strength of our martial spirits ourselves, and determine the levels of our martial spirits, then we can just name them." Guyang laughed. "Alright, that's what I mean too." Chu Chu nodded. "You go to the testing stone and summon your green gourd. Push your martial spirit's power to the highest level." "Yes, Chu." Lin Muyu stood up and walked to the testing stone. This stone was collected from deep within the mountains. It possessed natural spiritual energy and was naturally sensitive to human martial spirits. Lin Muyu gently placed her palm on the stone. The golden gourd emerged from her body. As Lin Muyu activated her Do Qi, the light became more and more intense. In the blink of an eye, it let out a wung-wung sound, illuminating the entire temple. The light on the testing stone continued to shine. It changed from green to green, then to black, then to deep red, and finally stopped at purple. It's purple now. Guiyang was overjoyed. Chu's martial spirit has already reached the purple first grade. Under Yu's cultivation, this gourd martial spirit has already advanced to the first grade. Chu twirled his beard and laughed. Yu is indeed talented. He can do what others can't. I can feel that this green gourd martial spirit has the essence of the 7 luminaries Shen force. As Yu grew, the essence of the martial spirit was changed by the 7 luminaries Shen force. That's why its power is so powerful. In my opinion, Yu's first grade martial spirit should be named 7 luminaries Holy Gourd. Deacon Guiyang, what do you think? Guiyang chuckled, good name. Chu is really knowledgeable. This 7 luminaries Holy Gourd is enough to become a first grade martial spirit. Guiyang picked up a brush, dipped it in ink, and wrote the name of 7 luminaries Holy Gourd on the second page of the Book of 10,000 Souls. At the same time there were 6 other first grade martial spirits: God Binding Chain, Demon Blood Saber, Purple Dragon, 8 Desolate Sword, Dragon Beard Vine, and Stepping Fire Tiger. Chu squinted his eyes and said, "You, summon your God Binding Chain and push your power to the highest level." Yes, Chu. Lin Muyu gave a low shout and 9 golden God Binding Chains appeared around her. Light swirled around her, and as Lin Muyu exerted her strength, the golden light expanded explosively. At the same time, a faint starlight from the 9 heavens appeared around the golden light, and the power of the stars seeped into the God Binding Chains, giving off a domineering aura. The light on the testing stone continued to expand until it turned purple. Then blue starlight appeared above the purple. It was a spectacular sight. Wow, it can't be. Zhou Yao was dumbfounded. Bai Lifu's eyes also widened. Could it be? Deacon's God Binding Chain has surpassed the first grade martial spirit? Guiyang's hands were trembling and he was very excited. Yu's God Binding Chain seems to have changed. Yes. Chu smiled as if he was looking at a fire. I don't know why, but the star arts that Yu cultivates can actually fuse with the God Binding Shackles, causing the star arts that are infused with the God Binding Shackles to be even more overbearing. This is really a stroke of luck. The power of the God Binding Shackles is indeed above the first class of martial spirits. Deacon Guiyang, how do you think we should classify it? Guiyang's breathing was a little hurried and his face was red. This is a miracle. In the history of the Holy Temple, there has never been a situation like this. A martial spirit that surpasses the first grade? Are we going to create a new classification for martial spirits? Chu smiled. That's not impossible. Deacon Guiyang, don't be too excited. I can boldly tell you that after Her Highness Yin cultivates the dragon beheading art, her God Binding Chain seems to have been strengthened by the dragon beheading art, and its power is also slightly higher than the first grade. If we really want to create a new classification, then Yu and Xiao Yin's martial spirits are enough to be classified as martial spirits of the first grade. Lin Muyu coughed. Deacon Guiyang, then let's do it. Martial spirits of the first grade? It sounds a little stronger than the first grade martial spirit. Okay, this old man obeys. Guiyang immediately wrote martial spirits of the first grade on the draft of the 10,000 soul canon, and raised his head. But, as they are both God Binding Chains, how should we name them? Chu pondered for a moment, then said, Yu's martial spirit shall be named Star God Binding Chains, and Xiao Yin's martial spirit shall be named True Dragon God Binding Chains. This is also in line with the will of the heavens. Her Highness Yin has the bloodline of an emperor and the body of a true dragon, so she is probably the only one who can cultivate the true dragon God Binding Chains. Lin Muyu happily returned to her seat and sat down again, then said, I can finally hold my head high. Super First Grade Star God Binding Chains, First Grade 7 Luminaries Immortal Gourd. From now on, my name will be written in the annals of the cultivation world of the Empire, right? Chu couldn't help but laugh. Not only the annals of the cultivation world, even the annals of the Empire will definitely have a page of your name. Maybe later generations of historians will even write a personal chronicle for you. That is a rare honor. The Empire has existed for thousands of years, but only a few dozen people have had the honor of writing a chronicle. Lin Muyu said with a smile, Fame to me is like a floating cloud in the sky. Before she could finish, a temple guard outside said respectfully, Grand Deacon, Princess Tang Xiaoxi requests an audience. Ah, Xiao, she is back? Yes, she is just outside the hall. Let her in. Ah, no. I'll go get her. Lin Muyu didn't even care about the dragon spirit sword on the table and flew out of the main hall. Chu Chu, Guyang, Zhou Yao and the others all smiled knowingly. Although Lin Muyu was now the Grand Deacon of the temple and one of the commanders of the Empire's major armies, she was still a hot-blooded young man after all. Outside the Grand Hall, the cold wind was blowing, causing Tang Xiaoxi's white leather robes to flutter lightly. Tang Xiaoxi stood gracefully on Skyspan Street, the strong wind causing her to blink her eyes repeatedly, her long eyelashes seeming to struggle in the strong wind. It was only when Lin Muyu walked out, dressed in the white robes of the Imperial Forest, that Tang Xiaoxi's eyes lit up. Seeing the person she had been thinking about day and night had a completely new demeanor, it was as if her heart was about to melt. It's cold outside, let's talk inside. Lin Muyu gently grabbed her hand and led her into the temple. Suddenly Tang Xiaoxi blushed and her heart was as warm as the sun. Behind them, a group of generals of the state army and several guards of the temple were all smiling. Everyone in Lanyan City knew that Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi had a very close relationship. They also knew that Lin Muyu, the foster son of the former emperor, had a very good relationship with the current emperor, Qinin. Therefore, almost every man in Lanyan City was envious of Lin Muyu, who had two supreme beauties in the imperial capital. This was something that ordinary people dared not think about. Xiaoyin, you must have something to do in Lanyan City, right? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Can't I come to you if I have nothing to do? Tang Xiaoxi looked at her with a hidden bitterness. Yes. Lin Muyu smiled and said, how's the matter of the demon clan in the Forest of Infinity? It's all right. Tang Xiaoxi gently held his arm. Suddenly her eyes turned red and she said, I heard that you went to the Iha kingdom. It's all right. Lin Muyu patted the back of her hand and said, I've brought Brother Qin Lei's head back and buried it under the national monument. If I don't do this, I won't be able to rest in peace. Xiaoxi, you must be able to understand me. But Tang Xiaoxi wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Let's talk about the demon clan. Lin Muyu smiled and said, the demon clan's Marshal Qian Feng has deliberately built all kinds of siege weapons, planning to attack the Empire's territory from the west. I'm worried that once the demon clan really succeeds in their invasion, our human army's power will be unable to resist them. At that time, I'm afraid we'll have to rely on the demon clan's military power. The demon clan isn't having an easy time either. Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips and said, the temperature in the Forest of Infinity is unpredictable. This spring and summer the sun has been blazing in the sky and there's very little rain, resulting in a severe drought. The wild plants in the forest have a very poor harvest, so the food for the demon clan has become very little. Autumn has just arrived and it's snowing continuously. The entire west of the demon subduing pass has become a sea of snow. A few days before I came, thousands of demon clans starved to death. So this time I came to Lanyan City to borrow food from Xiaoyin. Ah? Lin Muyu was slightly stunned. She touched her nose and said, shall I accompany you to see Xiaoyin? I'm okay. Chapter 417. Borrow rations? In Zetian Hall, several important officials of the Empire stood on the left and right while Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi stood together in the center aisle, looking up at Qinin on the throne. Tang Lan seemed to be the most sensitive about borrowing rations. After all, he was in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. What's wrong, Duke Lan? Qinin was surprised. Can't the Empire even provide 3 million caddies of rations? Your Highness. Tang Lan looked troubled. After Your Highness ascended the throne, you pardoned the world and reduced taxes by half. Therefore, the Ministry of Revenue's funds and rations are very tight. 3 million caddies of rations may not seem much, but Your Highness might not know this. A soldier's rations are about 2 caddies a day, and the rations of 10,000 soldiers are 20,000 caddies a day. The Empire has a total of 200,000 soldiers stationed around the Empire, and we have to provide 400,000 caddies of rations to these troops every day. We are already tight on rations, and if we give it to the demons, I'm afraid. Tang Xiaoxi bit her red lips and said, but these 3 million caddies of rations are too important to the demons. It can even save 100,000 demon casualties. Lin Muyu interceded. Duke Lan, you are in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. If you squeeze a little, you should be able to gather 3 million caddies of rations, right? If you really can't, we can always buy it with money. Tang Lan cupped his fists and said, Commander, you might not know this, but Lanyan City's harvest today isn't too good. Moreover, To transport rations from Lanyan City to the Forest of Infinity, war chariots can't be used in the forest, so we can only rely on commoners to carry them. With the commoner's speed, it will take at least 15 days to reach the Forest of Infinity. They have to eat 1 caddy of rations a day, which means 15 caddies of rations in 15 days, and 30 caddies for a round trip. A commoner can only carry 60 caddies at most, so transporting rations to the demons isn't 3 million caddies, but 6 million caddies. Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face darkened. But Grandpa, Tang Lan looked at Tang Xiaoxi, the granddaughter he doted on the most, and his gaze couldn't help but soften. But Xiaoxi, don't worry, grandfather will think of a way for you. For these 6 million caddies, the National Treasury will provide 2 million caddies, and grandfather will help you gather the remaining 4 million caddies. Don't worry, the first batch of grain will be on the road tomorrow. As she spoke, Tang Lan looked at Qinin respectfully and said, Your Highness, I wonder if this is appropriate. Qinin nodded and smiled. The monster race is our vassal nation. We should help them. As long as we can save the monster race, anything is fine. Thank you, Master Lan, for putting in so much effort for the nation. Tang Lan, thank you, Your Highness, for understanding this old subject. Oh right, is there anything else? Yes. Tang Lan cupped her fists and said, Recently the Longdan army camp seems to have built quite a number of camps at the edge of the forest north of Lanyan City. When this old subject's men patrolled the city, they saw many people who didn't belong to the Imperial Army holding weapons and wearing armor, practicing fighting tactics. There were quite a number of them, at least 30,000. Moreover, the North Ridge Mercenary Corps seemed to be there as well. Does Your Highness know about this? Qinin was taken aback. I know. Those are the reserve forces of the Longdan army camp. But Your Highness. Tang Lan raised her head and said, The Empire's military law strictly stipulates the number of people in each legion. Once someone privately recruits soldiers, it will be seen as a rebellion. Your Highness, please investigate this. If that's the case. Qinin stood up slowly, her eyes full of smiles. The Longdan Army Camp Commander Lin Muyu has made great contributions in saving the nation. The Longdan Army Camp has defeated the Demon Race and Iha Nation's armies on the Qinling Mountains, greatly raising the nation's prestige. Immediately draft a decree to expand the Longdan Army Camp to an upper limit of 50,000 people. This is in line with the will of heaven and the will of the people. I believe Master Lan and Grandfather will not have any objections, right? Tang Lan was taken aback. Su Muyun bowed calmly but didn't say anything. On the other hand, a few generals of the Su family showed indignant expressions. One of them was Su Long, the commander of the Steel Blade Army of Muyu City. He cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, the Empire is currently experiencing a disaster of food shortage. It doesn't seem right to expand the army when the people don't have enough to eat. I hope Your Highness can consider the people. Is that so? Qinin looked at Su Long and said, Master Lan, Grandfather, actually Xiao Yin has a decision. I plan to reduce the salaries of all the officials of the Empire by 20% from next month onwards. This money will be used to encourage farming, planting, and other businesses. What do you think? Su Muyun bowed and said, I support Your Highness' decision. I'm just worried that those officials who are used to living a good life will not be convinced. It's okay. They will be convinced. Qinin smiled and said, Draft an imperial decree. When the empire is in danger, all the officials' salaries will be reduced by 20%. In addition, the Ministry of War will provide all the weapons, food, and horses needed for the expansion of the Longdan army camp. Do not neglect them. Everyone cupped their fists and said, Yes, Your Highness. At the side, the Minister of War, Xueling, looked at Lin Muyu with a smile and said, Congratulations, Commander Yu. You have finally been promoted from a battalion commander to a corps commander. According to the Empire's military system, an army with less than 20,000 people could only be considered a battalion. An army with more than 20,000 people could be called a corps. There was no upper limit to the number of people in a corps. The prestige and authority of a corps commander was obviously much higher than that of a battalion commander. The biggest beneficiary of the expansion of the Longdan army camp was undoubtedly Lin Muyu. Currently, he was an indispensable existence in the Empire's army. Thank you, Sir Xueling. Lin Muyu smiled humbly and said, In the future we will still have to rely on Sir Xueling to take care of the Longdan army camp. Otherwise we will not be able to provide food and weapons. This number of people will be useless. Xueling laughed and said, Don't worry, Commander Yu. This is a decree personally issued by His Highness. I will definitely take care of it personally. I will not let the Longdan army camp be neglected in terms of military supplies. And thank you. In the afternoon, 100 carriages full of food left Lanyan City for the demon-subduing pass. Tang Lan valued Tang Xiaoxi's affairs very much. This efficiency was really admirable. According to Tang Xiaoxi's order, after this batch of food arrived at the demon-subduing pass, the guardian army of Tang Town would send it to the Forest of Infinity. The demon tribe in the Forest of Infinity would also send people to receive it. In this way, the rations and manpower of the people could be saved. It was not as terrible as Tang Xiaoxi described. However, it seemed that Tang Xiaoxi still could not forgive Tang Lan. She only promised him to go back to the Duke's mansion for dinner at night. In the afternoon, she still followed Lin Muyu with dozens of guards. In the afternoon, Lin Muyu's task was to check the newly built Longdan army camp. In fact, he was very worried. Although Situ Sin used to be a senior imperial general, he had been a big hooligan for 4 years after all. His way of doing things had gradually changed. He was not like Wei Chou, Fengxi, and the others who scrupulously abided by their duties. As expected, the newly built Longdan army camp outside the northern part of the city was very chaotic. Lin Muyu led a 1,000-man Longdan army camp heavy cavalry into the camp slowly. On both sides of the camp were tents that were randomly set up, and the mud on the ground had not been filled up. In the wilderness, many Heaven Execution Society disciples from the slums were fighting over the few pieces of armor and emblems of the Longdan army camp. All of them were red in the face from arguing. On the other side, there was a bard sitting in the mud playing the horsehead zither. A group of recruits from the Longdan army camp surrounded him and cheered. Further away there were a few burly recruits wrestling. Some even started a bet. Tang Xiaoxi looked around with her bright eyes and couldn't help but laugh. I say, Commander Mu, your recruits from the Longdan army camp look really good. I really don't know how you are going to train them in the future. Lin Muyu's face was ashen. Damn. I'm so angry. Someone, where's Situ Sin? Get him here. Yes, Commander. In the chaotic crowd, Situ Sin rode over on his horse. He wore a captaincy rank with 2 gold stars on his neck. He was wearing a fiery red general robe of the Longdan army camp. He cupped his fists respectfully and said, Greetings, Commander. Situ Senior Lin Muyu pointed at the group of people in the camp and said, Are these the recruits you brought me? You used to be a general of the Empire. Is there anyone who leads troops like you? Situ Sen said solemnly, Commander, you don't know that these people were originally ruffians. It's not easy to train them into real soldiers of the Empire. It can't be done in a day or two. Since they can't adapt to the barracks life for the time being, and there are no concubines in the Longdan army camp, I have allowed them to go to the flower restaurant in Lanyan City twice a week. If conditions permit, they can have a concubine, but they can't bring her into the barracks. They are allowed to fight once every 3 days, but they can't be killed. They are allowed to pick their nostrils during combat training, but not more than 3 times a day. Lin Muyu was so angry that she almost fainted. Situ Sen, you treat my Longdan army camp as a cattle farm. Wei Chou also said, Situ Sen, is there anyone who leads troops like you? Situ Sen immediately glared at him and said, Wei Chou, don't think that you're great just because you're the deputy commander. Let me tell you, I, Situ Sen, can defeat you within 3 moves with 50% of my strength. The commander can scold me, Situ Sen, but you, Wei Chou, don't have the right to do so. Wei Chou almost died of anger. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and asked, General Situ Sen, are you really going to lead troops like this? Can such a Longdan army camp really fight against the demons? I'm very worried. Situ Sen cupped his fists respectfully and smiled. His eyes were full of deep meaning. He said, Commander, if you trust me, Situ Sen, then give me the full authority to train the new soldiers. Don't worry. Once we really fight against the demons, I can guarantee that these grandsons will immediately forget about the prostitutes in the brothel. They will carry their weapons and risk their lives to fight against the demons with us. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded approvingly and said with a smile, Perhaps only blood can let them know what war is like. There will be such an opportunity. Situ Sen nodded. Commander, further north is the camp of Ashue's 3rd Corps. North Ridge Mercenary Group will definitely satisfy you. Yes, let's go. Chapter 418. Although the 3rd Legion's camp was messy, it wasn't chaotic. The barracks were neat and tidy. From afar, the North Ridge Mercenary Group's mercenaries had already removed the mercenary badges on their shoulders and were training their combat skills in a row of 100 people. Moreover, this group of mercenaries was originally equipped. After all, they were the top mercenary group in Lanyan City, so their combat strength would definitely not be weak. Situ Shui rode her horse over with a face full of smiles. With twin blades hanging from her waist, she bowed respectfully and said, "I'm Situ Shui. Greetings, Commander." "Greetings? This is?" Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, "Tang Xiaoxi. So you're Princess Shi?" Situ Shui looked at her in high spirits and said with a smile, "Princess Shi led the Demon Clan and the National Garrison Army to recover Lanyan City during the crisis. Your name has long spread throughout the empire." "I'm Situ Shui. Greetings, Princess Shi." "No need to stand on ceremony." Tang Xiaoxi chuckled. "You're Mu's woman, which means you're my friend. We'll be family from now on." "Thank you for your trust, Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi blinked and suddenly asked, "Oh yes, your North Ridge mercenary group is known as the top mercenary group in North Ridge province. You've been living a carefree life in Xiaoyao. Why did you join the Longdan army camp and be restricted by the Empire's military system?" Situ Shui was stunned. She cupped her fists and said, "Princess, the first reason is that although mercenaries are very free, they're like a group of soulless walking corpses. They don't know what they're fighting for. Situ Shui wants to become an imperial general and lead the brothers to fight for the empire. The second reason is that Situ Shui wants to be together with my brother, Situ Senator. The third reason is that the only person who can easily defeat Situ Shui, who is noble and uncorrupted, is Commander Yu. Therefore, Situ Shui is willing to give her life to Commander Yu." "He's noble and uncorrupted?" Tang Xiaoxi glanced at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but chuckle. "This fellow is very cunning. You'll know in the future." Cough cough. Lin Muyu coughed and said, "Don't destroy my glorious image in the eyes of my subordinates." "All right, General Shui, continue with your training. I'll accompany Princess Shi to walk around. The flag and emblem of the Longdan army camp are being made and will be sent over soon. As for the uniform armor and weapons, it'll take some time. Please wait patiently." "Yes, Commander." Situ Shui cupped her fists respectfully. Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu left the camp slowly. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said, "Mu, you're such a playboy. Does this Situ Shui like you too?" "No, don't let your imagination run wild," Lin Muyu said righteously. "She only admires my sacred domain strength." "Humph, I'd be a fool to believe you." Wei Chou and Fengshi snickered at the back. At this point, the three major armies of the Longdan army camp were officially established. The first army was led by Wei Chou and had 20,000 people after recruitment. The second army was led by Situ Sen and had 15,000 people. The third army was led by Situ Shui and also had 15,000 people. There were a total of 50,000 people in the army, and it quickly became one of the bravest main armies in the empire. When it was close to evening, Tang Xiaoxi invited Lin Muyu to the Duke's mansion in Seven Seas City to participate in the family banquet. Initially, Lin Muyu refused, but seeing Tang Xiaoxi's pitiful look, she had no choice but to follow. She knew that Tang Lu and Tang Tian wouldn't treat her well, but she was worried that something might happen to Tang Xiaoxi, so she had no choice but to follow. At night, the lanterns in Lanyan City were lit, and the night sky was as mesmerizing as a noble lady's evening gown. The sound of horse hooves was a little chaotic. Su Jiantao led 100 cavalrymen and escorted them to the Duke's mansion, but he was sent back by Lin Muyu. After all, Lin Muyu already had a sacred domain cultivation base. In addition to the first-grade 7 luminaries Immortal Gourd and the first-grade Star God Binding Chains, there weren't many people in the empire who could do anything to him, not to mention that Tang Xiaoxi was by his side. "Princess Commander Yu, you're here." The person in charge of receiving them was the Duke's mansion's beautiful supervisor, and she seemed to be a member of the Tang family. She looked to be in her 30s and had a good temperament, but her smile hid too much of her true emotions. "Let's go in." Tang Xiaoxi nodded with a smile. Lin Muyu handed the treading snow warhorse to a servant and followed Tang Xiaoxi into the mansion. The main hall was brightly lit, and attendants walked in and out. Although the rebuilt Duke's mansion wasn't as luxurious as LV Zhao's mansion, it was still as luxurious as a marquis's mansion. Tang Lan came out to welcome them, followed by Tang Lu, Tang Tian and Tang Wei. Tang Xiaoxi's actions after recapturing Lanyan City made Tang Lu and Tang Tian feel disgusted. Perhaps they didn't consider Tang Xiaoxi as a member of the Tang family. Only Tang Lan's old eyes were cloudy. He looked at Tang Xiaoxi, then looked at Lin Muyu and suddenly said, "You also came?" Lin Muyu respectfully said, "I pay my respects to Duke Lan. There's no need to be so polite. Come in, we can have a meal together as a family." Tang Lan said meaningfully. Lin Muyu was startled, but she didn't pursue the matter. She accompanied Tang Xiaoxi into the main hall, and the aroma of delicious food assaulted their nostrils. This table was filled with rare delicacies. The Seven Seas province was rich and populous, and the Tang family's wealth was something ordinary people couldn't hope to achieve. Lin Muyu only took a glance at the table and saw that there were many rare wild animals, melons, and fruits on the table. The price of this table of food was at least 2,000 Jinin coins. Just this table of food was enough for an ordinary family of 4 to live for 400 years. However, there was another person who was also invited. This caused Lin Muyu to be somewhat surprised. It was actually Xiang Yu. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was reasonable. It was just that Lin Muyu was Tang Xiaoxi's best friend, and what kind of status did Xiang Yu have to be considered a family member by the Tang family? After everyone sat down, the attendants poured wine for them. Tang Lan's hand trembled as she held the wine cup and said, "It's rare for Xiaoxi to come home for a meal today. Come, let's not go home until we're drunk." After downing the wine, Tang Lan sat down. The scene was a little awkward. Tang Lu and Tang Tian naturally didn't have good intentions towards Lin Muyu. In fact, they didn't even want to see this person present. Tang Lu rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Today is a family banquet. I wonder if Xiaoxi has already prepared to marry Commander Yu since she brought him back? This wedding will definitely cause a sensation in Lanyan City, right?" Tang Xiaoxi was startled. Clearly, she didn't expect Tang Lu to say such a thing. However, she also knew that the person Lin Muyu deeply loved was Qinin. She knew that the chances of them being together were minuscule. For a moment she didn't know how to answer. Fortunately, Lin Muyu smiled and said, "As for the matters of children, we'll talk about it after we recover the Iha nation and eliminate the demons. I hope that Duke Lan can understand all of Xiaoxi's actions." Tang Lan nodded and said, "This old man knows that Xiaoxi has always been the apple of this old man's eye. She's my pride." Tang Tian's smile was full of bad intentions as he said, "Commander Yu has already become a true army commander. The Longdan army camp is doted on by the Empress alone. I presume that Commander Yu has already become a famous general of the Empire in the future. I wonder what Commander Yu thinks about the war between the Empire and the demons?" This, Lin Muyu frowned and said, "The demons are powerful. They can't be defeated overnight. Let's take it slowly. I only hope that the Ministry of Works can develop more powerful weapons to make up for the gap between the physiques of us ordinary people and the demons' armor demons." Tang Lan smiled and said, "Today we're eating together, let's not talk about national affairs. Alright, I want to announce something. In the first half of next month, choose a good and auspicious day to hold the wedding of General Xiang Yu and Tang Wei." Tang Xiaoxi was surprised. "Tang Wei, you want to marry Xiang Yu?" Tang Wei was sitting beside Xiang Yu. She blushed and nodded and said, "Yes, grandfather has already betrothed me to General Xiang Yu." Xiang Yu stood up and cupped his fists majestically and said, "This general will definitely not disappoint Duke Lan's good intentions. I will naturally treat Princess Tang Wei well in the future and treat her as my everything. I will never let the Tang family down." Good. Tang Lan said good 3 times in a row. Then he looked at Lin Muyu meaningfully and said, "Commander Yu, the demons are powerful. The Iha nation is still in the ascendant. The Empire is still on the brink of life and death. You, me, and General Xiang Yu are all generals of the Empire with military power. At this moment, we should put aside our previous enmity and work together for the Empire. What do you think?" Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, "Duke Lan is right." Tang Lan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "With Tang Bin's death, one of the 3 Tang sect iron medallions has lost its owner. I am old and don't have much time left. The only thing I am worried about is the Tang family and Xiaoxi. I know that you mistakenly killed Tang Bin to save Xiaoxi. Now that time has passed, I don't want to pursue this matter too much. I only hope that you, the outstanding generals of the Empire, can turn the tide and save the Empire from disaster. Duke Lan, what do you want to say? Please say it directly." "Okay." Tang Lan took a deep breath and said, "Although I hope that you will marry Xiaoxi in the future, the heavens have no control over us. So, I hope that you can become sworn siblings with Xiaoxi and swear that you will never betray Xiaoxi in the Tang sect. I will bestow the last Tang sect iron medallion to you. You can mobilize the troops of the Seven Seas Tang sect as you please. What do you think?" Lin Muyu's heart was in turmoil. After a few seconds she said softly, "I understand Duke Lan's good intentions and Xiaoxi also has deep feelings for me. I will never regret betraying Xiaoxi, but I am Qin Jin's adopted son. Qin Jin doesn't treat me well but he trusts me very much. Furthermore, my brothers, Chu Huayin and Qin Lei, have already died for this empire. I'm afraid that I can only be loyal to the Qin family for the rest of my life. However, Duke Lan is also a subject of the empire, so you will definitely be loyal to the empire like me. So, what difference is there between being loyal to the Qin family and being loyal to the Tang sect? Tang Lan fell silent, and his eyes were filled with confusion. He picked up his chopsticks and said, "Let's eat. Let's not talk about national affairs anymore." Chapter 419. Ever since Tang Xiaoxi borrowed food, 2 months had passed in the blink of an eye. Spring was already blooming in Lanyan City. The training in the Longdan army camp was getting better day by day. The entire army was equipped with armor and weapons, and the group of hooligans had also been trained by Situ Sun and looked like the Empire army. The Empire, Iha country, and the demon race were all in a state of hibernation. After the Thunder Rush army defeated Long Chenlin's dragon riders, the Iha country had been in a state of defense, while the demon race took advantage of the situation to sweep nearly 1/5 of the Iha country's land and then began to recuperate. The armored demons had no food in winter and could not fight at all. It seemed that the demon race was also waiting for the right opportunity. In the morning, the holy temple was quiet. The birds were chirping happily and the flowers were exuding a refreshing fragrance. Lin Muyu woke up from a pile of files again and rubbed her eyes. At this time, the voice of the holy temple guard came from outside the door. "Great Deacon, the Zetian temple has sent someone to invite you over for a discussion. They want you to go immediately and not delay." Got it. After washing up, Lin Muyu put on the white robe Imperial Forest armor and left the sacred hall on treading snow. Moreover, she was alone. With her current cultivation, Lin Muyu was not worried that anyone would assassinate her. Even if she came, she would only be courting death. When she arrived at the Zetian temple, she saw Feng Jixing rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning as he walked on the stone steps. "Brother Feng." Lin Muyu caught up and handed the warhorse to the attendant. "What's the matter? Why did Xiao Yin send someone to call us over so early in the morning?" "I don't know either. Most likely there's a war in the distance. Let's go in." "Okay." In the main hall, after waiting for a while, Su Muyun, Tang Lan, and the others also arrived. "What's the matter, Xiao Yin?" Lin Muyu could not help but ask. Qin Yin saw that almost everyone had arrived and said, "We received a letter from the Demon Suppression Pass this morning. There's a war in the west of the Empire." "West? The Endless Forest?" Feng Jixing asked. Qin Yin nodded and said, "It's spring now, the season when the young and the yellow are not in contact. Many places are suffering from famine, but it's not as bad as the Forest of Infinity. At the same time, it also proves that there are still races living in the west of the Forest of Infinity." "Ah." Feng Jixing was stunned. "Isn't it said that the west of the Forest of Infinity is a boundless, uninhabited desert? Who else could it be? We were all wrong." Qin Yin's expression was dignified as she said, "At the end of the desert, there is another race called the Great Savage Tribe. That is a race that lives in the savage land. The humans there are very tall. The book said that the soldiers of the savage tribe are generally nearly 3 meters tall and have extraordinary strength. They are extremely hungry and came all the way from the desert to the endless forest to plunder the food of the demon race. At this moment, Xiaoxi has already led the country army and the demon race to war with the great savage tribe, but the result is still uncertain." Tang Lan asked anxiously, "How is the battle situation?" Qin Yin handed the letter to the female official and said, "Everyone take a look." In the end, the letter did not mention the battle situation and only said that the great savage tribe's battle power was very shocking and there were more than 30,000 people. Even though the demon race's snakemen army was strong, they did not seem to be a match for them. Tang Xiaoxi requested that if Lanyan City had sufficient troops, they should send reinforcements. Tang Lan clenched the letter tightly and said, "Xiaoxi is a strong child and will not ask us for help unless it's a last resort. This hateful great savage tribe. Your Highness, please send the Empire's army as reinforcements. Otherwise, once the demon race and the country army are destroyed, I'm afraid that our western border will fall. At that time, the great savage tribe, demon race and Iha country will attack from 3 sides and the Empire will be powerless to turn the situation around." Qin Yin's gaze was faint as she said, "Reinforcements are certain, but I have not made a decision yet as to which army is the best to send." In the crowd, Su Yun cupped his fists and said, "This general is willing to lead the Steel Blade army to reinforce Princess Shi." Tang Lan frowned and said, "No, the Steel Blade army is responsible for guarding the Yudao River defensive line and cannot leave at will. In my opinion, it is better to let the Marquis of Pingnan Xiangyu lead 50,000 Sangnan province's army as reinforcements. Xiangyu's talent is enough to stand proudly in the world and be able to contend against the great savage tribe. Qinin nodded her head. Good is good, but the great savage tribe is too strong and General Xiangyu has just married not long ago. I'm afraid that this will inconvenience Princess Wei. Xiangyu cupped his fists and said, This general is the Empire's general and will shed blood for the Empire. Pleading for your highness to give the order. This subordinate will immediately gather the Sangnan province's army and head to the western border. Feng Jixing frowned and said, Your highness, this general has something to say. General Feng, please speak. Qin Yin said with a smile. Feng Jixing said, As everyone knows, Qianfeng has amassed nearly 200,000 demon soldiers in the eastern border of Sangnan province. They can invade the border at any time and Sangnan province is the strongest support of the Yudao River defensive line. If the Sangnan province's army is mobilized, what will happen if the demon race attacks the city? So, this general thinks that we should let Commander Yu's Longdan army camp head to the western border and have a showdown with the great savage tribe. Qin Yin nodded her head and smiled. General Feng's words are reasonable. Grandfather, what do you think? Su Muyun muttered. Xiang Yu and Lin Muyu are both famous generals of the present age. In fact, either one of them can go. Why don't we draw straws? Qin Yin took 2 pieces of paper and wrote, Go, and don't go on them. She handed them to a female official who walked forward and said with a smile, Commander Yu, please draw one. Lin Muyu drew one and Xiang Yu also drew one. In the end, Xiang Yu wrote, Go, on his paper while Lin Muyu wrote, Don't go. After all, Xiang Yu wasn't Zhang Fei and Qin Yin wasn't Zhuge Liang. That's good. Tang Lan clapped her hands and smiled. Then Marquis Pingnan Xiang Yu will lead the army. Your Highness, please give the order. Yes. Qin Yin nodded. Draft an edict to order Marquis Pingnan Xiang Yu to gather 50,000 men and horses to the endless forest in the western border to reinforce Princess Shi. They are to set off immediately without delay. All the necessary rations and weapons will be provided by the Ministry of War. Yes. Xiang Yu had a smile on his face. But at this moment, the sound of horse hooves suddenly came from outside the hall. A messenger ran into the hall panting and said, Bad news? Your Highness, bad news. What is it? The steel wall has sent a letter. There are movements from the demon race. Qianfeng is leading a 150,000 army to approach Dao River and is about to launch an attack. Bring up the letter. Yes. Qin Yin swept a glance at the letter and her face was slightly pale as she muttered, The demon race. Finally attacked. Everyone was shocked and many of the generals' faces revealed a look of fear, especially those who had fought with the demon race before. They understood what kind of concept Qianfeng and a 150,000 demon army was. This was simply a destructive force. As long as they crossed Dao River and broke through the steel wall, the empire would be finished. At this time, almost everyone placed their hopes on the steel wall that was built with 500 million Jinin coins. Qin Yin seemed to be somewhat tired as she quietly sat on the throne and said faintly, Qianfeng is attacking the empire again. Tell me, what should we do? Su Muyun cupped his fists. Your Highness, the demon race must be resisted and the demon race must be saved. This old official thinks that it is no longer suitable to change the military strength in Sangnan province and the Longdan army camp will be stationed near Lanyan city. Commander Yu will lead 50,000 Longdan army camp to reinforce the demon race while the rest of the country's military strength will be concentrated on Dao River and fight to the death with the demon race. Qin Yin nodded and suddenly stood up and said in a dignified manner, like what Duke Yun said, Longdan army camp will send out troops to subdue Demon Pass and the rest of the country's military strength will fight to the death with the demon race. I will personally go to the steel wall to supervise the battle. If this battle is not won, the empire will perish. Everyone cupped their fists together and said, We are willing to fight to the death with the demon race. In the main hall, only Lin Muyu stood there in a daze. He knew how powerful the demon race was and he wanted to compete with Qianfeng even more. But with the current situation he was afraid that everything was out of his control. Late at night, the sound of horse hooves did not stop. A large number of Imperial Guards and Longdan army camp soldiers galloped across Tongtian Street and went straight to the city gate. They were followed by a large number of war chariots escorting provisions and weapons. The war was urgent and did not allow for any delay. Outside the city, beside a carriage with a canopy, Qin Yin was dressed in a dark blue robe. Under the moonlight, she looked at Lin Muyu's face faintly. as if she was afraid that she would not be able to see him in the next moment. Feng Jixing stood to the side with his warhorse. He rubbed his nose and said with a sigh, "It is too difficult to meet, and it is too painful to be separated. Cherish this moment." Lin Muyu placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and squeezed out a smile. "Xiaoyin, don't worry about me. The great savage tribe is only a barbarian tribe after all. Their battle strength is limited. I will definitely win in the first battle. After I subdue the great savage tribe, I will immediately lead the Longdan army camp back and go to the steel wall to pick you up. Yes, you must come." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist, but she did not cry. It seemed that these years of tempering had made her more and more like a queen and not a little girl who only knew how to act coquettishly. Lin Muyu looked at Feng Jixing again and said, "Big brother Feng, the hard armor of the demon tribe is very hard. It is difficult for ordinary weapons to pierce through it. I have a total of 300,000 white diamond arrows. I will give you half. Take care of yourself. In the days that I am not around, I will entrust Xiaoyin to you." Feng Jixing's nose turned sour and he laughed loudly. "Don't worry, you leave sister-in-law to me." Qin Yin's face instantly turned red. "General Feng, what are you saying?" "Your Highness, I will die." "All right." Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse. She stretched out her hand to hold Qin Yin's small hand and reluctantly let go. She said, "The mountains are long and the rivers are far. We must all take care of ourselves. We will meet again in Lanyan City. All of you must come back alive to see me." Qin Yin's shoulders trembled slightly. Looking at Lin Muyu's clear eyes under the moonlight, she felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. How could they stay together in troubled times? The most they could do was to enjoy themselves. When Lin Muyu led Wei Chou and others to disappear into the night, Qin Yin finally could not help sobbing in a low voice and crying. Feng Jixing stayed by her side, but he did not know how to comfort her. He just said, "Your Highness, we are going to battle." Chapter 420. It was spring in the Demon Suppression Pass, and flowers were blooming outside the pass. However, there was an aura of death in the air. Almost all the prey in the endless forest had been hunted by the demon clan, and only the ancient trees and endless grassland were left. Lin Muyu rode treading snow into the Demon Suppression Pass slowly. She did not stop and led the heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp through the Demon Suppression Pass and arrived outside the pass. In the distance, a group of demon clan troops were waiting. Tang Xiaoxi was waiting there in a white robe, and beside her were Ling Hu Yen, Tang Jin, and a few Naga generals. Lin Muyu looked at the Nagas and found that they were so thin that only snake bones were left. Their faces were sallow and emaciated, and they did not even have the strength to spit. Ever since Tang Xiaoxi ordered the Nagas and lizard men not to eat humans, the Nagas could only eat rats, rabbits, and other animals in the forest. This year was a famine, and they had almost eaten all the animals in the endless forest. Tang Jin gently cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Commander Yu." Wei Chou, Situ Sen, Situ Shui, Fengxi, and the others also cupped their fists and said respectfully, "Greetings, Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu nodded at the same time. Lin Muyu frowned and looked at the endless forest in the distance and said, "Xiao Shi, what's the situation here? Where are the savage tribe?" "They are stationed in the Coiling Dragon Valley, a valley in the southwest of the endless forest. The demon clan and the national army are fighting against them. By the way, Mu, how much food did you bring?" "Not much, but there will be more later. Let's go first. I want to see how powerful the savage tribe is." "Okay, let's go." Tang Xiaoxi led the 50,000 people of the Longdan army camp straight into the endless forest. The sound of horse hooves was dense. After a few years, the endless forest had opened up a road for cavalry to gallop freely. This must be the credit of Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Jin. After riding for a day and a night, they entered the depths of the endless forest. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and the scenery was breathtakingly beautiful. However, Lin Muyu also noticed that there were very few hares, wild boars, and wild deer along the way. Even if there were one or two hares that scuttled past, they would immediately be shot down by the Treant. The Treant carried the prey over and offered it to the Naga generals. These Naga generals did not stand on ceremony. They used their scimitars to cut the hares into pieces and swallowed them with blood and fur. Wei Chou, Situ Sen, and the others all frowned. After all, they were of different races. Looking at the appearance of the serpent men eating made them want to vomit. Moreover, they could imagine that in the past, when the demon race and humans fought, the corpses of the humans were also swallowed by the serpent men like this. It was truly somewhat terrifying. Tang Xiaoxi pointed to the front and said, "We are almost there." The coiling Dragon Valley is surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there are only two paths connecting the north and south. In the past half a month, the savage tribe has attacked our camp many times. Both sides have suffered losses. In the forest, the war flags of the Great Qin Empire fluttered in the wind. They had arrived at the camp and it was just a huge camp made of logs. It didn't have much defensive power. In terms of defensive power, the sharpened wooden antlers outside the camp were the only defensive fortifications, and they couldn't be any more crude. Tang Jin rubbed his nose awkwardly and said, "The National Army is short of resources, and we were in a hurry to fight. This is all we could do. I hope, Commander, you will not laugh at us. It is already good that you can defend it. No need to blame yourselves." Lin Muyu's voice was very gentle. After the army slowly entered the camp, Wei Chou looked around and said, "Commander, this place is a good place and it is spring. The fodder for the war horses is not a problem, we can graze them everywhere, but the food for the soldiers will be a big problem. Our supply route is relatively long, and also relatively slow. I am afraid that we will not be able to support the food needs of nearly 200,000 human clan and goblin clan army. Then try to find a way. Send out scouts to observe the surroundings. Yes. Assemble the arrow boxes. They may be used at any time." This subordinate understands. In the central tent, before they sat down, the sound of war drums came from afar. Tang Jin immediately frowned and said, "These bastard barbarians? We have been traveling for a day and night, and we haven't even had the time to close our eyes. They actually attacked again." "Is this the sound of the savage tribe's attack?" Lin Muyu asked. "Yes." "Then don't rest." Lin Muyu ordered, "Generals, follow me out. Let's see how powerful the savage tribe is first." "Yes." Everyone didn't take off their armors. They walked out of the camp and mounted their horses. Under the lead of Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Jin, they went straight to the battlefield outside the camp. Along the way there were demon and human soldiers preparing for war everywhere. Their faces were ashen. It seemed that no one had any good expectations for this battle. In fact, many people here had been starving for many days. Not to mention fighting, it was difficult for them to continue living. Lin Muyu galloped along the way and saw everything. She said, "Give them half of the rations in the Longdan army camp. We can't let the National Army and the demon race fight on empty stomachs. Immediately send a letter to Lanyan City. Tell them that the Forest of Infinity is in dire need of rations. No matter what, they must transport rations here. In addition, send a letter to Jean Xiaotang of the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Tell her to think of a way to transport as much rations as possible to the Forest of Infinity to supply the Longdan army camp." "Yes, Commander." Wei Chou cupped his fists and then went to order his subordinates. In the distance, the war drums thundered. There was a large open space between the huge coiling Dragon Valley and the Forest of Infinity. At this moment, this open space happened to become the battlefield for both sides. Amidst the beating of the war drums, rows of spearmen from the National Guard Army and the Naga Army fought side by side. Their opponents were a group of giants with crude weapons in their hands. Each of them was nearly 3 meters tall and was incomparably sturdy. Their weapons were stone awls or sharp stones tied to wooden sticks with vines to act as spears. "It can't be." Lin Muyu frowned. "Stone Age." "What Stone Age?" Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes narrowed as she asked. "It's a kind of civilization product." Lin Muyu didn't explain further. Her eyes were fixed on the battlefield. The human and demon armies were already fighting with the barbarian tribe's army. Although they were well equipped, they were no match for the barbarian tribe's army. Accompanied by angry roars, the youths of the barbarian tribe used giant rocks to blast away the charging cavalry. The serpent men were originally very strong, but they were inferior to the barbarian tribe's army. The hissing sounds of the serpent men could be heard in the air as they were thrown away by the barbarian tribe's warriors like grass snakes. "Kill." In the crowd, a general of the barbarian tribe who was wearing a tiger skin robe, brandished a dazzling battle axe. With a spin of his body, he created a whirlwind that actually blew a group of human soldiers into the air, causing them to scream miserably. "Heavens?" Wei Chou frowned. "What kind of power is this?" "Who is that?" Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were gloomy. "The patriarch of the barbarian tribe, also known as the Great Barbarian God. He is extremely strong and unreasonable. At least 100 of our people died under his battle axe. I don't know where he got this Saint-grade battle axe from." "It's actually a Saint-grade," Lin Muyu muttered to herself. This battle axe must have fallen into the barbarian tribe's territory and been obtained by him. Otherwise, with the barbarian tribe's productivity, it would be impossible for them to forge weapons. Not long after, Tang Jin gave the order for the national army to retreat from the front lines. They were already unable to withstand the attacks of the countless barbarian tribe's warriors and had suffered heavy losses. Archers, get ready to shoot from afar. Arrows flew into the sky like rain and pierced into the bodies of the barbarian tribe's warriors. Unfortunately, although the barbarian tribe was very powerful, their equipment was not very good. They didn't even have a shield, so they could only use their flesh and blood to block the arrows. However, their bodies were very strong, so the arrows could only injure them but not kill them. Ao! The injured barbarian tribe warrior roared and grabbed the neck of the National Army soldier with one hand, crushing his head. Blood splattered everywhere as he carried the soldier's body and smashed it. Bang! 7 or 8 soldiers were smashed to the ground. It was a tragic sight. This kind of innate divine strength could be compared to the demon race's armor demons. Commander, do we need reinforcements? Wei Cho narrowed his eyes and said, if we don't, I'm afraid that the National Army's position will be broken. Once these barbarian tribe warriors engage in close combat, our Longdan army camp may not be able to gain any advantage. Lin Muyu nodded. Everyone change to bows and aim. Shoot their legs and arms so that they can't attack. Yes, do we need to use white drill arrows? No, use ordinary arrows. Yes, this subordinate understands. Thousands of Longdan army camp's heavy cavalry turned into cavalry archers. Under the leadership of Wei Cho, they charged forward and drew their bows and arrows. For a moment, blood splattered everywhere. Under this kind of fierce and intense shooting, the barbarian tribe's attack was instantly blocked. It seemed that the bow and arrows were the best weapon for humans to stop the barbarian tribe. After the drum beat, the patriarch of the barbarian tribe roared, "Retreat! Retreat!" They were afraid. If this continued, the barbarian tribe's army would probably be completely destroyed by the cavalry archers of the Longdan army camp. Don't chase. Lin Muyu raised her arm and gave the order. Everyone stood in place and watched as the barbarian tribe's army slowly left. They even took the injured with them. Moo. Tang Xiaoxi rode over and asked with her beautiful eyes, do you want to take back the barbarian tribe? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. But, the barbarian god calls himself a conqueror. He wants to use his battle axe to conquer the entire eastern continent. I'm afraid he won't be willing to be taken back by you. Don't worry, Xiaoxi. They will. Lin Muyu's clear eyes looked in the direction of Coiling Dragon Valley. She didn't hide the confidence and determination in her eyes. Chapter 421. In the middle of the night, the first batch of food from the Longdan army camp had arrived. It was distributed evenly so that everyone in the army could eat their fill. The Nagas finally restrained the hunger in their eyes when they looked at the human soldiers. In the central tent, the candlelight swayed in the night wind. Everyone was gathered around a simple map of the endless forest. Lin Muyu held a lit candle and carefully looked at the terrain on the map. She said, is it possible for our army of 200,000 to surround the entire Coiling Dragon Valley? The entire Coiling Dragon Valley? Tang Jin was startled. Commander, the Coiling Dragon Valley isn't small. Tang Xiaoxi smiled with dimples. It's not small, but if the army of 200,000 spreads out, we can indeed surround it so tightly that not even a drop of water can pass through. However, if the great wilderness god leads the barbarian army to break through, I'm afraid that none of our armies will be able to stop him. Yes, of course they will. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, we only need to fight and intimidate the morale of the great wilderness god tribe. That way they won't dare to take half a step out of the Coiling Dragon Valley until they are willing to negotiate with us. Wei Cho smiled. Commander is indeed clear. The great wilderness god tribe definitely doesn't have much food in the Coiling Dragon Valley. They won't be able to hold out for long. Yes. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, immediately pass down the order. Situ Sen and Situ Shui will lead the 2nd and 3rd battalions of the Longdan army camp and bring 100 arrow boxes to the southern exit of the Coiling Dragon Valley. Wei Cho will lead the 1st battalion of the Longdan army camp and the National Army to guard the northern exit of the Coiling Dragon Valley. The monster race will guard the mountain range on all sides. Since this great wilderness god tribe dares to set up camp in the valley, then let them suffer the consequences. After surrounding them, provoke them and draw them out to fight. Remember, don't fight them head-on. Use the arrow boxes and arrows to let the great wilderness god tribe suffer a crushing defeat before they can even touch us. Yes, Commander. Prepare supper. You're still eating so late? Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips. I'm afraid of getting fat. It's okay, I'll eat. Lin Muyu smiled faintly. After I finish eating, I'm going to explore Coiling Dragon Valley. I want to see how much food the savage tribe has left and how long they can last. Wei Chou hurriedly said, Commander, please reconsider. You're the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, you can't risk yourself. Don't worry. Lin Muyu said confidently, I know that I might not be able to defeat that great wilderness god, but at least if I want to leave, he won't be able to stop me. I'll go with you. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes were like water. All right, let's go together. Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. Tang Xiaoxi's strength would double after transforming into 9 tails, and she would be able to help her a lot. After all, she was not familiar with this place and it was good to have Tang Xiaoxi with her. It was late at night and 2 steeds left the camp at high speed. Shueli and treading snow, the 2 divine steeds were very fast, and they were not affected much when they entered the forest. Their iron hooves crossed over thorns and shrubs, bringing Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu to the foot of the mountain outside Coiling Dragon Valley. Both of them changed into black robes and let their steeds graze in the wild. Then they climbed up the cliff. Their movements were as agile as monkeys, and in a few leaps, they had already landed on the peak of the mountain. Wait! Lin Muyu's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible in the night wind. He raised his arm to signal Tang Xiaoxi to stop, and pointed to the distance. There were 2 giant warriors of the great wilderness tribe sitting there with stone awls in their hands. It turned out that they were the sentries of the great wilderness tribe. Tang Xiaoxi looked at him with her beautiful eyes wide open, asking if he could get rid of these 2 people. Lin Muyu shook his head. He did not want to kill one more person if it was not necessary. He leaped forward, and the whirling fighting light danced above his palm. Pa! It fell on the back of the 2 warriors' heads and knocked them out. Lin Muyu's strength was no longer what it used to be. He could even knock out an armor demon, not to mention the great wilderness tribe whose skin defense was far inferior to the armor demons. Let's go. Lin Muyu smiled, revealing his white teeth under the moonlight. Tang Xiaoxi held back her laughter and leaped forward with Lin Muyu. The 2 of them were like fairies under the moonlight. Their movements were mysterious and light, and the sound of their landing was so soft that it was almost inaudible. It would not attract anyone's attention. In the valley, the campsites of the great wilderness tribe were connected for several li, and the bonfires were connected. Many barbarian warriors were barbecuing. Black things were hanging on wooden sticks and some of them were still alive making GG sounds. What's that? Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu were hiding behind a huge rock, quietly watching the great wilderness tribe rest here. Field mice. Lin Muyu saw it clearly. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but reveal a look of disgust. She would rather die than eat mice. Lin Muyu laughed softly and said, if you are really hungry, having a field mouse to eat is already a heaven-sent delicacy. Xiaoxi, you grew up in a noble family, so of course you don't understand. I understand. The endless forest has been hungry for almost half a year. They dig the soil in the forest, eat the grass, eat the dormant insects, eat the hibernating snakes, and eat the nests of mice. Almost all the edible things in the endless forest have been eaten. We can only hope that the weather will be good this year, and that the grains planted by the fox tribe will have a good harvest. Otherwise, this year will be a disaster for the demon race. Don't worry. Lin Muyu comforted. The Qin Empire has nearly 100 million people, and there is plenty of land. It will not be a problem to feed hundreds of thousands of demon race. Duke Lan is your grandfather, and you have seen that he has done his best for the demon race. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, Mu, you can also see that grandfather wants to make up with me. And we are family after all. We can talk about this in the future. Lin Muyu continued to look into the distance and said, the great wilderness tribe's people are so strong. Will they be full just by eating a field mouse? Now look over there. Tang Xiaoxi pointed into the distance and saw several Manhuang tribe warriors working together to carry the carcass of a giant bear into the crowd. Instantly, the surrounding Manhuang tribe warriors cheered. That was the true source of their food. Kill the spirit beasts in Coiling Dragon Valley? Lin Muyu frowned. High-level spirit beasts have always been territorial. Coiling Dragon Valley is not very big, and how many spirit beasts can there be? They have at least tens of thousands of soldiers in the valley, and there is not enough food. As she spoke, Lin Muyu began to focus and increase the insight of the spirit pulse technique. She narrowed her eyes and sensed all the power in the surroundings. Although the wilderness tribe warriors were powerful, Their auras were only at the first level of the human realm, so it was easy to distinguish them. However, there were a few extremely powerful forces coming from the mountains in the distance, and they were at least at the level of 60-100-year spirit beast. There are spirit beasts indeed. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Let's go, we will go and get rid of the spirit beasts in the mountains so that they have nothing to eat. In at most 7 days, the wilderness tribe will take the initiative to ask for peace. And Lin Muyu slowly pulled out the dragon spirit sword and flew over the mountain range with Tang Xiaoxi. Soon they arrived near the aura that the spirit pulse technique had sensed. They saw a cluster of torches burning in the distance, and about 20 wilderness tribe warriors were guarding a cave in front of it. The roars of wild beasts could be heard coming from the cave, and at the same time, there were flashes of fire. Needless to say, the wilderness god was in the cave, and he was the one who killed the wild beasts to provide food for his tribe. Lin Muyu gently held Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and brought her to hide behind a bush, carefully observing the area in front of them. After a few minutes, the roars of the wild beasts disappeared, and with a rustling sound, the wilderness god walked out step by step with a dazzling battle axe in his hand. In his left hand was the corpse of a huge wild boar. This wild boar was 6,400 years old, and it was as big as a small mountain. Good heavens, this was enough for the wilderness tribe to eat for 2 days. Your Highness is mighty. A group of wilderness tribe warriors knelt on the ground. The wilderness god had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his entire body was covered with bulging muscles. He looked very satisfied, but suddenly he seemed to have sensed something. With a shout, he turned around and rushed toward Lin Muyu's hiding place. He raised his battle axe and with a schwa sound, his aura was overbearing. Oh no! Lin Muyu never thought that the wilderness god would be so sensitive to auras. He raised his palm and the 7 luminaries' immortal gourd appeared in the air. With a dang sound, a golden light burst out, and the wilderness god's battle axe was sent flying back. Pa! Holding the battle axe that was sent flying back, the wilderness god looked at Lin Muyu proudly and said, "Another so-called commander of a human empire. What's your name?" Lin Muyu. What an ugly name. The wilderness god looked at him coldly, then at Tang Xiaoxi and said, "What do you want by coming to my wilderness tribe's camp? I advise you to surrender." Lin Muyu smiled and said, "If you don't surrender, your tribe will be exterminated here. If you surrender, I can arrange a place for you so you don't have to suffer from hunger." Impudent. The wilderness god's face was full of anger. Who do you think you are? You want my wilderness tribe to surrender? Dream on, hand over your life. Lin Muyu gently pushed Tang Xiaoxi away and said, "Xiaoxi, don't interfere. I want to fight him one-on-one." Ba, one-on-one? The wilderness god's face was full of disdain. With just you? Yes, with just me. Lin Muyu held the dragon spirit sword in front of his chest and smiled. If you lose, surrender and I will give you enough food to survive. How about it? I need food, but I will never surrender. Heavens, so unyielding. Amidst the howling wind, the wilderness god rushed over like a whirlwind. He didn't cultivate a martial soul, nor did he have battle energy, but the power contained in the battle axe forced Lin Muyu to go all out. Starlight gathered on Lin Muyu's body from the sky, fusing with the power of the stars in his body. The light suddenly exploded. First move, first starlight. Chapter 422. Peng. The cyclone surged and exploded. As the axe and sword collided, the rocks on the ground were scattered by the shockwaves of energy. Some were even directly turned into dust. Under the raging wind, Lin Muyu's white robe, which was hidden under his black robe, fluttered in the wind. The golden light shone on his handsome face, making him look even more handsome. The group of warriors of the great wilderness god tribe were also blown back by the wind. All of them were dumbfounded. No one had ever been able to stand up to their tribe leader like this. Shoo! Lin Muyu took a deep breath and the battle energy in his body surged. This great wilderness god tribe was indeed born with divine strength. He was actually able to forcefully resist the might of the first move of the star arts with just the natural true energy in his body. Again. The great wilderness god tribe's eyes burned brightly under his thick eyebrows. He laughed loudly and said, "Awesome. Awesome. I didn't think that there would be such an expert among the humans. Come, come, come. If we don't settle this today, don't even think about leaving." Just what I wanted. Lin Muyu suddenly shook his long sword and activated all the battle energy in his body, directly raising it to the 100% realm. He leaped up, and the power of the stars rapidly surged onto the tip of his sword, turning into rocks and stardust. A majestic power of mountains condensed, and the 5 mountains descend from the heavens forcefully descended from the sky, directly smashing towards the great wilderness god tribe's head. When the great wilderness god tribe felt that terrifying pressure, he didn't dare to be careless. He waved his battle axe and suddenly spun it, shouting in a low voice, "Circumference!" An invisible domain vortex formed in the air to resist the sacred domain pressure that Lin Muyu's attack had produced. The great wilderness god tribe brandished his battle axe and continuously spun it. Every time it spun, the domain vortex's energy would increase by another layer. In the blink of an eye, 7 layers had condensed. His forehead was already dripping with sweat, and his entire body seemed to be wrapped in a storm. He swung his battle axe and rushed towards the 5 mountains descend from the heavens. Lin Muyu had never seen such an attack method before. It was too barbaric and violent. Bang! 5 mountains descending from the heavens clashed head-on with the domain vortex. The divine power of the 9 god-binding chains exploded, and a golden light soared into the sky, illuminating the entire valley. The great savage god of desolation also withstood the full power of the 5 mountains descending from the heavens. He forcefully stirred up his true energy, and his axe forcefully knocked away the dragon spirit sword. Lin Muyu felt a sweetness in her throat. New wounds were added to her old ones, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Mo. Tang Xiaoxi was anxious. Her beautiful eyes suddenly turned cold, and she quickly entered the 9-tailed fairy fox state. 9 flaming tails danced behind her, and her strength increased to the sanctuary level. Xiaoxi, I'm fine. Lin Muyu wiped the corner of her mouth, and her eyes were filled with calmness. Indeed, Lin Muyu had only coughed up blood because of the great savage god of desolation's divine power. The great savage god of desolation stood majestically in the same place. His face was pale and he struggled to hold the axe with both hands. Blood flowed from the area between his thumb and index finger. Under the detection of the spirit meridian technique, the great savage god of desolation's aura had decreased by at least 50% after taking the 3rd strike of the star arts. His injuries were far more serious than Lin Muyu's. Slowly raising his head, the great savage god of desolation looked at Lin Muyu coldly and said, "The great savage god of desolation is a proud race. We will never lower our heads to other races. We are conquerors, not enslaved. Lin Muyu, don't even think about making us submit. I swear that I will sweep through the human world and make you bow down to the great savage god of desolation. Dream on." Lin Muyu's voice was calm and full of ridicule. Bastard. The great savage god of desolation was enraged. He raised his axe and charged forward, shouting, "I will take your life." The axe had a strong divine luster and was very powerful. The battle energy in Lin Muyu's body was surging crazily. She couldn't summon too much power at the moment, so she had to use a gentle force. With a flip of her wrist, 3 cyclones appeared around her long sword. She flew forward and used the blade of her sword to slide past the axe. Sword absorption technique. Bus. The great savage god of desolation's great strength had lost its aim, and its axe fell onto the ground, instantly shattering a huge boulder. However, amidst the sound of the wind, Lin Muyu took advantage of the situation and leaped up, her pair of battle boots kicking down from the sky. Bang bang bang. The great savage god of desolation's iron arm was covered in blood after 3 consecutive kicks. Finally he couldn't block anymore and his body trembled. Lin Muyu's body was in the air as she punched the ground. When she regained her balance she kicked out 3 more times. This time, all of her kicks landed on the great savage god of desolation's face. Even one of his front teeth fell out. As blood splattered, the great savage god of desolation retreated with his axe. His heart was filled with anger and humiliation. He forcefully swung his axe through the air. However, Lin Muyu seemed to be riding on the wind. She nimbly dodged the attack and smashed the hilt of her sword into the great savage god's shoulder. Bang! The great savage god of desolation suffered another heavy blow. The divine power in his body finally couldn't keep up. I know what I'm doing. The next day, early morning, a large number of Desolation Tribe warriors formed groups and left the valley. However, when they approached the valley entrance, they heard the sound of human war drums in the distance. Prince Huangshi was shocked. He turned to the great savage god of desolation who was riding on a war bear and said, "Father, those despicable human armies have already surrounded the valley entrance. What do we do?" The great savage god of desolation narrowed his eyes. He slowly raised his battle axe and said, "The great savage tribe is invincible. Children, charge with me. Let's break through their encirclement. Let's steal their food and return home. Everyone roared and rushed out of the valley like a tidal wave. However, outside the valley was an army of 30,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp led by Situ Sen and Situ Shui. 100 arrow boxes and a dozen ballistae had already been set up. When the great savage tribe army rushed out of the valley, Situ Sen raised his arm and shouted, "Fire!" Whoosh whoosh whoosh, dense arrows raged. This time it was a destructive attack. The Desolation tribe warriors at the front were pierced by the thick steel arrows and died tragically in a pool of blood. Coupled with the arrows from the Longdan army camp, the Desolation tribe warriors at the front almost fell in droves. They were born with great strength, but they couldn't even touch the opponent. They died in an incomparably sullen manner. "Spear and shield camp, go!" Situ Shui shouted. The soldiers of the 3rd Division of the Longdan army camp raised their shields and spears and formed a defensive line. The spears were at least 3 meters long. Before the Desolation tribe warriors could get close, they would pierce through and kill them. The cavalry archers at the back continued to rain arrows on the crowd. In an instant, blood stained the ground outside the valley. The outcome was very clear. Hiss hiss. Beside Situ Sen, a Serpent Man commander spat out his tongue as he stared at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Serpent Man warriors were usually defeated miserably by the barbarian warriors. But in the end, this group of unremarkable humans actually defeated the barbarian warriors. "What? You don't like it?" Situ Sen glanced at him. The Serpentine general didn't understand human language and hissed again. Situ Sen grinned. "Damn, my dear brother, you're really ugly." Situ Shui. After nearly an hour of fighting, the great Desolation tribe slowly retreated, leaving behind nearly 3,000 corpses outside the valley. They had lost miserably and almost didn't have any strength to fight back. In fact, if Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Zhen had enough rations and arrows, they might not have lost to the Desolation tribe. However, their conditions were too harsh. They didn't even have food to eat. When faced with the crazy charge of the Desolation tribe, it was inevitable that they would suffer heavy casualties. In the wasteland, the defeated Desolation tribe had long lost their spirit. Prince Huangshi said with an ashen face, "Father, what do we do now?" The great Desolation god looked as if he had lost his soul. "Charge out from the northern mountain pass." "I don't believe." Chapter 423. Pa pa pa. Amidst the sound of flapping wings, a white bird with a letter landed on Lin Muyu's arm. She opened the letter and saw Situ Sen's handwriting, "Have been repelled." Good. Lin Muyu smiled cheerfully, "Be on guard and wait for the savage tribe's counterattack." "Yes." Wei Chou cupped his fist and asked, "Situ Sen has repelled the savage tribe?" "Yes, 100 arrow boxes and 20 crossbow carts. The power is extraordinary. The savage tribe does not even have a single defensive armor, so naturally they will suffer a big loss." Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. Since they cannot rush out from the south exit, they will definitely attack from the north exit. As long as we repel the savage tribe here again, they will be honest. "Yes." At the side, Tang Xiaoxi, Tang Zhen and the rest watched quietly. Lin Muyu's art of war was like catching a turtle in a jar, eating the tens of thousands of savage tribe warriors tightly. But Tang Zhen also knew that the reason why Lin Muyu dared to use this kind of strategy was because the Longdan army camp had brought 200 strengthened arrow boxes and 50 crossbow carts. This was the strategic capital. "Commander Yu." Tang Zhen's eyes widened as he smiled. "This general has a presumptuous request." Lin Muyu had long seen through his thoughts and smiled. "Commander Tang Zhen wants the arrow boxes, right?" "Yes." Tang Zhen did not deny it. Although the country garrison army is also one of the Empire's army, it is after all the army guarding the borders. Usually they do not get much care from the Ministry of War and Ministry of Works. We can only hear about the developed weapons but are unable to get a share, unlike the Longdan army camp which is stationed in the imperial capital. "Well, don't talk about it, it's not too sour." Lin Muyu touched her nose and said, "When the Longdan army camp retreats from the Forest of Infinity, these arrow boxes and crossbow carts will all be left to you. Tang Zhen, you have to make good use of them. The blacksmith shop in the Demon Suppressing Pass can forge arrows of different sizes. You just have to learn how to repair and maintain them." "Yes, thank you, Commander Rain." Tang Zhen was overjoyed. "You don't have to thank me. You have to be able to control the barbarian tribe in the future. Otherwise, given their tempers, I'm afraid they might rebel at any time." Tang Zhen was stunned. "Commander, what do you mean?" Tang Xiaoxi giggled. "Can't you tell? Mu wants to subdue the great savage tribe and make them work for the Empire. Really, Commander Rain? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded and said, you should know how strong the young warriors of the great savage tribe are. This is something that we humans can't compare with. This makes me think that if we forge giant shields for the warriors of the great savage tribe, add powerful spears, and tailor-made armor for them, the battle strength of the great savage tribe will increase by more than 3 times after a short period of training. We will then have the army to fight against the armor demons in the wild. Tang Jin couldn't help but smile and said, so Commander Rain has already thought so far ahead. This subordinate is convinced. No need to flatter me. I can't raise your salary, ha. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and said, how much food do we have left? How many days can we eat? At most 3 days, even if we take into account the endless supply of food from the Empire. Wei Chou said. This is not good. Lin Muyu frowned. The great savage tribe can at least hold on for 10 more days. We have to hold on longer than them. Is there any prey around here? There isn't. Tang Jin shook his head and said, the wild goods in the mountains have almost all been hunted by the tree demons. The edible wild vegetables in the fields have almost all been dug up by the snake people. There are only some fruit trees in the mountains. Perhaps they can provide us with food soon, but they can't keep up with the changes now. All right. Lin Muyu looked at Wei Chou and said, send a letter to Xiaotang and tell her to do her best to gather food for us. We can't rely on the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue for the military rations. Most of their food needs to be sent to the steel wall. Yes, Commander. This subordinate will do it right away. At this moment, noisy fighting sounds came from the valley. A large group of warriors of the great savage tribe rushed out with stone tools in hand. Their faces were full of anger, as if they wouldn't rest until they were dead. Prepare the arrow boxes, Fengshi said lightly. The warriors of the great savage tribe had only rushed halfway when the arrow boxes in the distance rang out in unison. Sharp arrows pierced through the bodies of the warriors like rain. The heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp raised their shields and used their spears to hit the shields. The war drums rumbled and the nearly 10,000 people outside the valley shouted in unison. For a moment, the warriors of the great savage tribe were all stunned. After nearly 500 of them were killed, facing the steel shields of the Longdan army camp, they all lost the courage to continue fighting and turned to flee. Aha, after all, they're just a motley crew. Wei Chou laughed. Tang Jin frowned and said, Vice Commander Wei Chou, the great savage tribe is actually far stronger than what you see. 3 days before they invaded the Forest of Infinity, they fought with us for a long time, causing us to lose nearly 20,000 soldiers. These days they couldn't find anything to eat in the Forest of Infinity, and many of them have been starving for 7 to 8 days. So that's how it is. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. In that case, the strength of the great savage tribe should be stronger than what we see. That's great. Guard the valley and don't let a single one of them come out unless they send an envoy to surrender. Otherwise, let's trap the great savage tribe in Coiling Dragon Valley and let them starve to death. That's better than letting them invade the Empire's borders. Yes, Commander. Lin Muyu looked at Tang Xiaoxi and said, Xiaoxi, take some people with you. We'll look around to see if there's anything we can eat. Distant water cannot quench a nearby fire, we must rely on ourselves. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and nodded. The Coiling Dragon Valley was already at the border of the Forest of Infinity, and it was also the place closest to the desert. One could feel the scorching wind blowing from the desert from afar. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi led the cavalry through the forest. They kept getting off their horses to look for food in the forest. Lin Muyu frowned and didn't say anything as she looked at the weeds. Madam, that's bezoar poison. It's a poisonous weed. After eating it, one will faint and tremble all over. As a local, Tang Jin reminded her. Lin Muyu held Taksha's hand and looked at another weed. She squatted down and uprooted it. Its rhizome was huge and it looked like a ginseng. However, the top part was slightly different. Madam, this weed is called crimson ginseng. It can be used as medicine, but it has no value, so you won't feel hungry at all, Tang Jin said again. All right. Lin Muyu got on her horse and led the group into the depths of the forest. After a long time, she saw a patch of green plants in the distance. She could not help but be stunned. She urged her horse forward and plucked a stalk. She crushed the ears of the stalk and said, This is wheat? Yes, it's a type of wild wheat, Tang Jin said. It's just that it's not widely spread, so it can't feed many people even if it's collected. There are many places in the Forest of Infinity, and it's usually used to feed horses. Lin Muyu furrowed her brows. Indeed, the ears of this type of wild wheat were very small and could not produce much food. Let's go. He got on his horse and continued to search in the forest with everyone. In the blink of an eye, Lin Muyu had wandered in the Forest of Infinity with Tang Xiaoxi and the others for 3 days. Meanwhile, the food of the Longdan army camp, the national army, and the demon clan was almost exhausted. It could be seen from the eyes of the Naga warriors that they were very hungry and wanted to eat. Therefore they kept drooling when they saw the soldiers of the Longdan army camp and the national army. Fortunately, the Longdan army camp and the national army were well equipped. They were also eyeing the demon clan covetously and thinking about the delicacies such as snake meat pot and bear paw stew soup. Lin Muyu was very worried. If they continued to starve, she was afraid that the humans and the demon clan would kill each other. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of the horse's hooves slowly stopped outside a valley filled with dancing butterflies and fragrance. Lin Muyu looked into the valley and sniffed desperately. She smiled and said, "It smells so good. What's the origin of this valley?" Tang Jin said, "Butterfly Valley. It's full of weeds and poisonous snakes." Poisonous snakes? Yes, it's a type of poisonous snake that lives in rocky areas. It's called the iron-head snake. It's huge and feeds on the mice, butterflies and other insects in the valley. That's why this valley is also called Butterfly Valley by the demon clan. What a beautiful name. Lin Muyu smiled. Let's go in and have a look? Tang Xiaoxi readily agreed. She looked at Lin Muyu with eyes full of tenderness. Perhaps at this moment, Lin Muyu was thinking about how to find food to save the 200,000 soldiers, but Tang Xiaoxi was thinking about how she and Mu would spend more time apart. It was a rare opportunity for him to take her on a sightseeing tour, so she took this as a good opportunity to be together. Looking at Tang Xiaoxi's gentle expression, Lin Muyu couldn't help but be stunned. She smiled and said, "Silly Xiaoxi, what are you looking at?" Tang Xiaoxi blushed. "Oh, nothing. There are poisonous snakes in Butterfly Valley. Mu, we have to be careful." "Don't worry." Lin Muyu urged her horse forward and activated the spirit pulse technique. At the same time, the pressure of her domain shrouded the surroundings. Pressure was a type of energy field that was effective against both living and non-living things. The pressure Lin Muyu released was harmless to the human body, but it could definitely make any iron-head snake flee. In order to avoid accidents, he pulled out his long sword and continuously slashed at the bushes on both sides to alert the snake. After entering the valley, Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were filled with little white flowers, causing her to feel intoxicated. She accompanied Lin Muyu with a smile on her face. Her hand was on the saber at her waist, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a beautiful smile. So many white flowers. Tang Xiaoxi sighed. So beautiful. Yes, very beautiful. Lin Muyu didn't go far when she suddenly turned over and dismounted from the horse. She carefully smelled the smell of the white flowers on the plant and felt that it was somewhat familiar. She frowned and said, "What plant is this?" "I don't know." Tang Jin shook his head and said, "There are poisonous snakes in Butterfly Valley, so very few people come here. Moreover, this is the depths of the endless forest. There may not be a single person who comes here all year round, let alone enter Butterfly Valley." But Lin Muyu bent down and used the dragon spirit sword to dig under the plant. She gently grabbed the plant on the ground and pulled it up. Suddenly there were several large underground fruits. Each fruit was as big as a fist and fell heavily on the ground. What is this?" Tang Xiaoxi blinked and asked. Tang Jin was stunned and frowned. "Madam, quickly throw this thing away. This is an inauspicious thing." "Why?" Lin Muyu was surprised. Tang Jin said, "There is a legend in ancient times that the underground things are round. If people eat them, they will suffer a great disaster. The people of our great Qin Empire never eat things that come from underground, especially things that are round." But Lin Muyu looked at the plants all over the mountain and shook the heavy plant in her hand. She said, "In my hometown this thing is called potato, also called potato." Chapter 424. Potato? Can it be eaten? Tang Xiaoxi looked at him with wide eyes. "Yes, it can be eaten. It tastes pretty good after cooking. It has high calories and can withstand hunger. It's a very good staple food. Wait a moment, I need to confirm if this is a real potato." As she spoke, Lin Muyu lightly crushed a potato and spread the juice on her palm. She said, "Lulu, come out and help me analyze if this is a potato and if it can be eaten." "Yes, brother." The beautiful elf official flew up and circled around Lin Muyu's hand before returning to Yi Hai. She said, 29% protein, 194% carbohydrate, 3% fat, 31% dietary fiber, and many other vitamins and cellulose. The overall composition is confirmed to be a potato and can be eaten. Genetic analysis shows that it belongs to the potato family and is considered a close relative of the potato. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Then I'll continue sleeping, brother. Commander, are you really going to eat something dug out of the ground? Weicho said in shock. Yes. Lin Muyu casually picked a few potatoes and placed them in a bag on the side of the warhorse. She said, "At this time, do you choose to follow the ancient teachings and starve to death, or do you choose to eat and subdue the savage tribe?" Weicho smiled. "This subordinate will listen to Commander. If Commander wants to eat, this subordinate will eat." Tang Zhen and the others were still in a daze. Lin Muyu said, "What are you waiting for? Everyone dismount and pick as much as you can. Bring a batch of potatoes back to camp and cook and eat them. Then send more people to dig potatoes in Butterfly Valley. There are potatoes everywhere in the valley and it will be enough for the army to eat for a month. It will be enough for the demon race to survive this spring." A fox general was very excited. "Commander, is what you said true?" "Yes, quickly pick them." "Yes." Everyone dismounted. Each person dug up a dozen kilograms of potatoes and carried them on the backs of their horses. Then they jolted back to camp to taste the potatoes. Why would people care so much when they were about to starve to death? Just like Shihua in Winterfrost City, he could even eat human flesh. What else could he not eat? At lunchtime, smoke curled up from the chimneys of the spiritual fire department. Pot after pot of potatoes with chili and salt were served. Lin Muyu accompanied Tang Xiaoxi, each holding an empty bowl as they waited for this military meal. When the huge potatoes were placed in the bowl, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. "Smells so good. Is it really edible?" "Don't worry." Lin Muyu took the lead and swallowed half of it in one gulp. It was almost scalded to death. She ate it with tears in her eyes. Tang Xiaoxi tasted the soup mouthful by mouthful and seemed to be able to taste the sweetness within. After eating a fist-sized potato, she drank the soup and put down her bowl and chopsticks with great satisfaction. In the distance, a group of starving soldiers were also fighting to eat this underground food. Not only were the potatoes delicious, but they also provided a lot of energy. They were very suitable for soldiers to eat. By noon, none of those who had eaten the potatoes had any problems. Thus, Tang Zhen happily led over 10,000 soldiers to Butterfly Valley to collect food. This way the food problem had been solved. When Jin Xiaodong's food arrived, the situation should have been settled. In Coiling Dragon Valley. Goo goo, the sound of rumbling stomachs could be heard. The great wilderness god sat down on a green rock. Beside her, Prince Huangxi was stewing a pot of wild vegetable soup. He said with a sorrowful expression, This wild vegetable is not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Royal Father, are we really going to be trapped here? The weapons of the humans are so powerful. Our warriors are unable to charge through." The great wilderness god's face was pale. He said, "It's all my fault. I led my people to cross the desert and come here. I didn't think that there would be such a powerful army on the other side of the desert. It's all my fault," Huangxi said. "Royal Father, you can't be blamed for this. The number of people in our tribe is increasing, but the land is decreasing. Last year, over 10,000 people starved to death. If Royal Father didn't lead the army here, I'm afraid that these people would also starve to death. This is a calamity for our great wilderness tribe. It has nothing to do with Royal Father's decision." "Son, do you think that Lin Muyu can be trusted?" "Lin Muyu? That person with the golden sword. Oh, he's very strong. I can feel that he's very strong from his aura." Huangxi frowned. "Royal Father, why are you suddenly asking this?" The great wilderness god said, "That night Lin Muyu told me that as long as our great wilderness tribe submitted to his empire, he would give us food and even let us settle down here." Huangxi was stunned. He gritted his teeth and said, "No, our great wilderness tribe has roamed the wilderness for tens of thousands of years and defeated many powerful opponents. Royal Father, have you forgotten? We have defeated the Nushi Nation, the Hard-Footed Army, and the Iron Mountain Dwarfs. These races have already bowed to our great wilderness tribe. Why should we submit to those weak humans?" "Son, you're right." The great wilderness god sighed. His eyes shone with a strong light. He said, "This king has roamed the wilderness for his entire life and defeated many powerful enemies. But now we have reached the end of the road. I have no other choice. I can either starve to death with the 30,000 warriors behind me, or I can only submit to the humans. What choice do you want me to make? Huangshi clenched his fists. Royal Father, I am willing to advance and retreat with you. We will kill our way out. I would rather be shot to death than give up the dignity of the warriors of the Great Wilderness Tribe. Good child. The Great Wilderness God patted Prince Huangshi's shoulder and said, Unfortunately, Royal Father is old and no longer has such lofty aspirations. I must consider the future of the tribe. If all the elite warriors of the Great Wilderness Tribe die in this valley, then it will be my fault. Huangshi remained silent. The Great Wilderness God said, How many people starved to death today? 71, Royal Father. Have we found new food? The warriors have already dug 3 feet into the ground, but they still can't find anything edible. Many of the warriors swallowed the soft soil but died because it was too hard to digest. The Great Wilderness God said, This king has decided to test Lin Muyu's credibility. Send someone out of the valley and tell Lin Muyu that if she wants to gain our trust, she must first send us 30,000 kilograms of food. Yes, Royal Father. At dusk, with Lin Muyu's permission, a total of 30,000 kilograms of potatoes and rations were transported into the valley by the unarmed warriors of the Great Wilderness Tribe. Under the setting sun, the armor of the imperial generals outside the valley was suffused with a moving radiance. Wei Qiu asked with a puzzled expression, Commander, our own food is already very difficult, why do we still have to give food to this group of barbarians? Didn't you say that you want to starve them, let them have a taste of hunger and then force them to surrender? Yes, I think they have already tasted hunger. Otherwise, someone as arrogant as the Great Wilderness God wouldn't beg us for food. Lin Muyu's eyes lit up. This time he is testing me to see if I really have the intention to accept them. Moreover, I want the Great Wilderness Tribe's warriors to be alive and kicking, not people who starve to death. Be patient, they will surrender soon. At that time we will need to prepare more food. Yes, this subordinate understands. Tang Zhen happily said, Congratulations, Commander, we are about to reclaim the Great Wilderness Tribe. Lin Muyu didn't look too happy. Instead, her handsome face showed some worry. I just don't know how the war between the Empire and the demon race is progressing. I hope it goes smoothly. I hope that Xiao Yin and Brother Feng are fine. Commander, don't worry. Her Highness the Empress is the ruler of the world and will be protected by the gods. If the gods were protecting them, good people like Chu Huayin and Qin Lei wouldn't have died. Lin Muyu looked up at the sky and couldn't help but sigh. I wonder when these wars will end. Wei Qiu was stunned. Commander, are you tired of these endless wars? How can I not be tired? Lin Muyu gently grasped the hilt of her sword. Who doesn't want to be by the side of their loved ones? Who doesn't want to live a carefree life like Xiao Yao? It's just that as long as the war continues, such days will never come. Tang Xiaoxi faintly nodded. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked towards the jungle in the east. No one knew what she was thinking. Night slowly fell. The sound of rushing water came from the tributary of the Daojiang River in Sangnan Province. The bright moon refracted beautiful rays of light in the sky, shining on this once extremely beautiful land. The light of the torch illuminated Qin Yin's beautiful face. She looked at the light of the bonfires in the demon race's camp on the east bank and couldn't help but sigh. Your Highness. Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, This subordinate will keep watch. Your Highness should rest early. No, I don't want to sleep yet. Qin Yin looked at the opposite bank and asked, General Feng, what do you think the demon race's plan is? It has already been more than 10 days and they haven't made a move. They are only mobilizing their troops. Which city will they attack? This general doesn't know. Feng Jixing, Qian Feng is an extremely intelligent fellow, maybe he is plotting something. The only thing we can do is to sit back and observe the changes, and then strike after the enemy strikes. The steel wall is basically completed, Your Highness, don't worry, the demon race is not good at attacking cities, even if they have siege weapons they might not be able to climb up the wall. As long as we guard this line of defense, there will naturally be no worries. How is the war in the Endless Forest? Very smooth. I believe that you will be able to defeat the great savage race's army in one fell swoop. That's good. The moonlight was like water shining on the earth. On both sides of the tributary of the Daojiang River, the light of the fire connected. This war would determine the situation and fate of the shattered Cauldron Realm continent for the next 100 years. Chapter 425. Early in the morning, a thick fog shrouded both sides of the river. It was impossible to see what the demons on the other side were doing. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of wings flapping in the sky. The winged people were the scouts of the demon race. Bring me my bow. On a small path outside the fortress, Qin was dressed in a well-ironed dark blue female military uniform of the Empire, with a blue-purple Yinghua Empress robe draped over her back. She took a bow from a servant, and her beautiful eyes flashed. She suddenly drew the bow and aimed at the sky. She couldn't see anything in the fog, so she could only rely on the sound to determine the location. With a whoosh, the arrow left the bow, and the next moment, a winged person screamed in pain and fell into the forest in front of her. Your Highness has great archery skills. Feng Jixing couldn't help but praise. Qin stood there suspiciously. It seemed that after cultivating the dragon-slaying art, her spiritual sense became much clearer. Chu Chu, who was riding on the horse, smiled and stroked his beard. Your Highness doesn't need to be suspicious. The dragon-slaying art originates from the dragon race. The ancient holy dragon race is much more sensitive to aura than humans. So your Highness's perception of aura and spiritual sense is probably comparable to you who cultivates the spirit pulse art. However, your Highness's archery skills are really good. Qin Yin's eyes turned red. This archery skills was taught to me by father. Chu Chu and Feng Jixing were silent for a while. Everyone slowly walked on the small path. A total of 5,000 imperial soldiers were protecting them. In addition to the three experts, Chu Chu, Feng Jixing, and Qin Yin, even if Luo Lan came personally, she wouldn't be able to do anything to Qin Yin. The river flowed endlessly. Qin Yin spurred her horse forward, and the dragon-shaped god-binding chains wrapped around her body. She was so majestic that a group of imperial guards did not even dare to raise their heads to look at the beautiful empress. Qin Yin suddenly got off the horse. She stepped on the grass beside the river and led the horse forward. The horse wanted to eat grass, but she didn't let it. She led it all the way, making Feng Jixing smile. Hua hua! Suddenly water splashed out from the bottom of the empress's boots. Qin Yin couldn't help but exclaim. She stood there dumbfounded, looking thoughtful. What's wrong, Your Highness? Feng Jixing asked. Qin Yin frowned and said, when I passed by here yesterday, the water level of the Daojiang River hadn't reached this level yet. Today it has reached this level, and the water level has risen by at least 1 meter. Even in spring, the water level shouldn't rise so quickly, right? Indeed, it's not that fast. Feng Jixing smiled. But, what did Your Highness think of? Yes. Qin Yin frowned and said, General Feng, I've thought of a very frightening situation. Do you think the demon race will fill up the river and try to use the heavy equipment to attack the steel wall? If the water level has really risen, I'm afraid they're already doing it. This. Feng Jixing's body trembled and his face turned pale. Someone, immediately spur the horses to search along the river downstream. Once the demon race has any unusual movements, immediately report to me. Yes, Commander. A group of Imperial Army cavalry galloped away. It was common sense to cut off the river downstream and raise the water level upstream. Feng Jixing and Qin Yin's heart turned cold. They must not look down on Qianfeng. They must not look down on the wisdom of the demon race's commander. Otherwise it would be a disaster. The blazing sun dispersed the fog. At noon, an Imperial Army cavalry galloped along the river bank and looked at the opposite shore with a dumbfounded expression. There, a large number of armored demons were hurrying back and forth. They were carrying sacks of mud that weighed hundreds of kilograms on their shoulders as they galloped and threw the sacks into the river. The demon race was indeed filling up the river. Half of the river had already been cut off, and this Imperial Army armored cavalryman's face was pale as he retreated and shouted loudly, Quickly send a letter to Commander Feng. The demon race is filling up the river 20 miles west of Mountain Forest Town's crossing. After noon, a large number of human troops gathered by the river bank. Qin Yin, Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu personally supervised the battle. The Imperial soldiers with heavy shields formed a line of defense by the river bank and watched the other party fill up the river. No, we cannot let them do as they wish. Feng Jixing's expression turned cold and said, Your Highness, please mobilize the navy and order Beili Tsang to go out to battle and destroy the demon race's dam. Otherwise, once the dam is completed, it will be our disaster. Yes. Qin Yin turned and said, Beili Tsang, immediately lead the navy to battle and use crossbows and arrows to disrupt the demon race's dam building plan. Yes, Your Highness. The war drums rumbled and dozens of naval warships docked on the shore slowly sailed around the dam. The deck was full of archers with longbows. They were about 50 meters away from the dam. Tens of thousands of arrows were shot at the same time. For a time, the armor demons on the dam fell into the water, and the tyrannical steel arrows of the crossbows could penetrate the shells of the demon race and kill them directly. The armor demons on the dam were in chaos. At this moment, a high-ranking demon race general who was enshrouded in blood demon breath, rode his horse, raised his long sword and shouted in the demon race's language. Soon, the armor demons picked up a shield that shone under the sun and blocked around the dam. Suddenly, most of the arrows were bounced off, but the demon race's sacks were still falling into the water, constantly cutting off the Rice River tributary. Not good, Xiang Yu gnashed his teeth and said, the demon race actually came up with such a despicable method. It's really hateful. Feng Zhangxing frowned and said, pass down the order, let the Navy throw barrels filled with black beach oil on the dam with catapults, and then shoot arrows. I'd like to see if these armor demons can continue to build the dam in the flames. Yes. Soon after, catapults were launched from the battleships one after another. Barrels filled with black beach oil fell into the embankment and into the water. Those that fell into the embankment were all broken and overflowed. Those that fell into the water floated on the surface of the water without being damaged. The next moment, dozens of battleships launched tens of thousands of arrows at the same time. Immediately, the armor demons on the embankment were caught in a sea of fire. An armored demon abruptly scooped up a barrel of black beach oil from the water as he slightly bent his body and abruptly threw it out. With a loud sound bang, the barrel smashed onto the deck of the battleship. At the same time, the high-class demon general raised his longbow and released a rocket precisely onto the battleship. In a split second, the black beach oil was ignited and exploded. As a result, the entire battleship was covered with flames. As a result, the Marines fell into the water one after another. Qin Yin frowned slightly and remained silent. Her heart became heavier and heavier. The demon race's tactic of filling up the river was almost unsolvable. Once they succeeded, they could only rely on the steel wall to protect the imperial capital. They stopped building the dam. Su Muyun said with narrowed eyes, but it's only temporary. Su'er said, Your Highness, what should we do? The black beach oil won't burn for too long. Qin Yin sighed softly and said, pass down my order. Stockpile a large number of arrows, stones and other defensive equipment on the steel wall. Prepare to rely on the steel wall to defend against the demon race. All the naval warships immediately leave the tributary of Daojiang River and go to the mainstream of Daojiang River to wait for orders. Otherwise, once the river is blocked, all our warships will fall into the hands of the demon race. Yes, Your Highness. Bailey Tsang cupped his fists and said respectfully. Qin Yin then looked at Feng Jixing and said, General Feng, the Navy will also listen to your orders. Look for opportunities. Once the demon race is negligent, the Navy warships can directly dock at the East Bank and send troops to burn the demon race's granary. Once the food is cut, the demon race will not be able to hold on for too long. Yes, Your Highness, I will follow your orders. Feng Jixing took a deep look at the flowing Daojiang River. West of the Empire, endless forest, coiling Dragon Valley. A group of barbarian race warriors surrounded the great barbarian god of wilderness as they slowly walked out of the valley. This was the first formal meeting since the start of the war. The war drums were very gentle, showing that both sides wanted to make peace. Lin Muyu dismounted and brought Tang Xiaoxi, Tang Zhen, Wei Chou and the others to greet them. Both sides stood in the open space in the forest. Long time no see, Lord Chief. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said with a smile. The great barbarian god of wilderness seemed to have aged a lot. Her expression was a bit dejected as she smiled and said, Commander Lin Muyu, the great barbarian race will never be conquered. But today we can establish a friendship and alliance between our two races. Of course. Lin Muyu smiled and said, although the great barbarian race and the human race are different, we are all humans and have the same bloodline. If the great barbarian race is in trouble, the human empire will naturally not stand idly by. Thank you for your kind intentions, Commander. The great barbarian god of wilderness smiled and said, what Commander means is, the barbarian race can stay in the endless forest to recuperate, but the condition is that we provide you with excellent warriors. Is that right? Yes. The barbarian race warriors are all descendants of the ancient barbarian god. Our bloodline is very pure, and the life of every barbarian race warrior is very precious. Commander should understand, right? I understand. I will do my best to ensure their safety. Once a barbarian race warrior dies, I will naturally compensate you with enough gold coins. According to the human empire's gold hub coins, How many gold hub coins will be given to us after a barbarian race warrior dies in battle? 100, Lin Muyu said. 100. The great barbarian god of wilderness frowned and said, their father gave birth to them and their mother raised them. They are all living beings and could have lived carefree lives. Are they only worth 100 gold hub coins? Lin Muyu said, the empire is at war and the economy is very poor. I already have enough. The compensation for a soldier who dies in battle is only 50 gold hub coins. But the total population of the barbarian race has shrunk from more than 10 million to less than a million. We can't afford any more losses. Moreover, this is a war between the humans and the demon race. It has nothing to do with our barbarian race. The patriarch was like an old fox, constantly exploiting the pitiful conqueror of Lin Muyu. How about this, 150 gold hub coins, no more? Lin Muyu nodded. Commander is benevolent. The patriarch continued, the barbarian race is descended from the ancient barbarian god. We have a proud bloodline and will never submit to any empire. Commander should understand, right? I understand. Lin Muyu cupped her hands and said, don't worry, the barbarian race will move to the south of the endless forest. We will give you land and form an independent country. You will still be the ruler of the barbarian race and no one can order you around. Our relationship will only be that of friends. The patriarch broke into a smile. Commander, you really are the savior of our barbarian race. Chapter 426. In the afternoon, an army of 5,000 soldiers from the great wilderness tribe slowly walked out of Coiling Dragon Valley. Everyone was so hungry that their faces were sallow and their bodies emaciated. This was the advanced team that the old fox patriarch had sent out. In reality, it was also a team used to test Lin Muyu's loyalty. This advanced team would first settle down in the endless forest. Only after that would the great wilderness god lead the other 20,000 soldiers out of Coiling Dragon Valley. But before that, Lin Muyu had to be responsible for the food and clothing of all the wilderness warriors. A cool breeze blew through the forest, causing the pure white royal cloak to flutter. Lin Muyu rested her hand on the hilt of her sword as she rode alongside Tang Xiaoxi. On the side, Wei Chou and Situ's son led the 10,000 heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp to protect them. They would be escorting the 5,000 wilderness tribe warriors to settle down in the endless forest. Furthermore, they would be in the forest's no man's land. They couldn't live too close to the demon race, so Lin Muyu arranged for them to settle down in the forest between the demon race and the national army. This place was suitable for planting and the national army could see it. If the wilderness tribe did anything strange, the national army could immediately take action. This war of conquest had nothing to do with justice. It was just a matter of making use of each other. Lin Muyu and the great wilderness god knew this very well. The army of the demon-suppressing mountain pass brought tents and a small amount of food. The first thing they needed to do was to give these wilderness tribe warriors a place to rest. Lin Muyu rode her horse to the clearing. The place was filled with trees that shaded the sky, which could shelter them from the wind and rain. On the other hand, the clearing in the distance was mostly soil with very few rocks, which was suitable for farming. We'll set up camp in the forest. Then we'll gather some potatoes and plant them in the sunny open space on the right. This should help them settle down and reproduce quickly, Lin Muyu said confidently. Seducen smiled. Commander, this wilderness tribe army is made up of men. There aren't any women. It's probably impossible for them to reproduce. It doesn't matter. Once they settle down, the great wilderness god will naturally arrange for people to migrate the distant wilderness tribe and let them come to the empire to reproduce. Yes, this subordinate understands. Is Xiaodong's grain transport team here yet? Soon. I'll definitely arrive before dusk. That's great. Lin Muyu was deeply worried. Since he came to the Forest of Infinity, his biggest problem was food. His mind was almost filled with food, and food. He was almost driven crazy by the food. The Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue could send about 200,000 jin of food every day, but it was far from enough to feed the 200,000 soldiers. Especially after the barbarian tribe decided to surrender, each young and strong barbarian tribe warrior could eat as much as 3 human soldiers. It was so much so that Lin Muyu had to consider the food rations of the nearly 300,000 soldiers in the Forest of Infinity. Including the civilians of the demon tribe who had lost their source of food, the daily consumption of food was at least 700,000 jin. At dusk, Wei Chou walked over holding a piece of paper and said, "Young Lady Xiao Tang has sent you Yu's letter. The grain transport team from Lanyan City is only 10 miles away from here. Alright, come with me to welcome them. Yes. The Forest of Infinity was not peaceful. Although Tang Xiaoxi was the ruler of the demon tribe in name, it did not mean that every little demon listened to her orders. Therefore there were often cases of wild snake people and lizard people sneak attacking the human army's grain transport team. There were a few cases a few days ago. The cavalry of the Longdan army camp galloped forward under the leadership of Lin Muyu. After 7 or 8 miles, they saw a convoy moving forward with difficulty on the winding forest road. The banners were the banners of the Imperial Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce, and they were escorted by the guards of the temple. There were about 50 of them, and one of them looked familiar. It was Zhou Yao, one of the deacons of the temple. Zhou Yao rode forward and cupped his fists respectfully. Great Deacon, this subordinate is here to transport the grain. Lin Muyu was overjoyed. Great Deacon Zhou has worked hard. This time, how much grain has been transported? We used large carts to transport the grain. Each cart weighs 2,000 caddies. There are a total of 300 carts, which is a total of 600,000 caddies of grain. Young lady Xiao Tang almost put down her business in order to collect the grain. But if this batch of grain can help Great Deacon, then our efforts will not be in vain. Zhou Yao said sincerely, Great Deacon, the people of Lanyan City are not having a good time. We really can't collect more grain. Young lady Xiao Tang said that the first batch today is 600,000 caddies. In the future, we can only collect around 200,000 caddies of grain every day. It will take a lot of manpower. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, It's really hard on you. Let's go and send the grain to the camp and then distribute it. Wei Chou happily nodded his head. Situ Sin frowned and said, Commander, forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly. This much grain is still not enough. I know. From today on, everyone's rations will be halved. In any case, the battle in the endless forest has ended. The intensity of training will be halved. Everyone will eat less and get through this period. Situ Sin cupped his hands and said, Commander, this subordinate actually has another idea. What idea? Lin Muyu's eyes lit up. The corner of Situ Sin's mouth rose. It's just that this method might be a bit extreme. It might even violate the Empire's military laws. It's fine, speak. This subordinate has eyes and ears in the Lanyan City area and is very well informed. I know that there are many mountain bandits hidden in the mountains around Demon Subduing Pass. These mountain bandits usually commit all sorts of evil and often rob people from all directions. The amount of grain they have hoarded in the mountains isn't just a star and a half. This group of rats has raised themselves to be fat and oily. Now it's time to slaughter them and eat their meat. As long as Commander gives the order, this subordinate will immediately lead the brothers of the Second Army up the mountain to exterminate the mountain bandits and bring back their grain. Moreover, their mountain strongholds will definitely have a lot of gold coins. With these gold coins, we can buy food in the villages within Demon Subduing Pass to solve our urgent needs. Situ Sun looked carefully at Lin Muyu and said, This subordinate knows that Commander is the foster son of the previous emperor and the elder brother of Her Highness Qin. Perhaps you will despise this subordinate for doing such a dirty thing. No, there's nothing dirty about this matter. Lin Muyu was in high spirits as she patted Situ Sen's shoulder. General Sin, if you can really complete this task, I will give you a great merit. I can also recommend you to join the Imperial Guard and receive the special honor of the Imperial Guard. Situ Sin was overjoyed. Really? Commander won't lie to me? When have I ever lied to you? But when exterminating the mountain bandits, try to minimize our own losses. Yes, this subordinate understands. I only ask for the commander's token to allow this subordinate to mobilize the army. Lin Muyu took a bronze tiger tally from Deputy Commander Wei Chou and directly handed it to Situ Senior. I'll grant you 10,000 troops. Go, I'll wait for your good news in the endless forest. Don't worry, Commander. Situ Sin will not disappoint you. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. The endless forest was quiet. Everywhere was the scene of birds chirping and flowers fragrant. The wild beasts that hibernated in the caves and crypts woke up and began a new year in the forest. In particular, the awakening of some herbivores seemed to have added a lot of vitality to the forest. The Ministry of Revenue's grain was continuously delivered every day. The grain collected by Jin Xiaotang was delivered every 2 days. Together with the large amount of potatoes dug out in Butterfly Valley, it was barely enough to feed 300,000 troops. The next thing to do was to wait for the potatoes planted by the Longdan army camp and the savages to be harvested early. Early in the morning, Wei Chao's respectful voice came from outside the tent. Commander, Prince Huangxi requests an audience. Let him come in. Yes. Wei Chou lifted the curtain and walked in with the burly prince of the savages. Huangxi originally only had contempt for humans, but now he could not help but be amazed by their planting skills. After seeing Lin Muyu's ability, he also understood how powerful human cultivators were. Their strength was not something that could be compared with pure brute force. Lin Muyu, who was in the midst of refining his star art, slowly retracted the source of his energy. Rays of blue starlight surrounded his body. He slowly opened his eyes, a pair of clear eyes filled with divine light. He smiled and said, Prince Huangxi, what's the matter? Huangxi smiled. Commander Yu, the first batch of potatoes we planted has been in the soil for so many days. Why haven't they sprouted yet? Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. Don't be anxious. Just make the soil soft and moist. This kind of potato can be planted throughout the year except for winter. You need to be patient. The plant's growth speed is not as fast as you think. Yes. Huangxi nodded and said with a smile, Commander Yu, Father will be leading the rest of the people to settle down here tomorrow. The tents and wooden houses are not enough. Please prepare more tents to shelter the warriors of the barbarian tribe from the wind and rain. You also know that although the warriors of the barbarian tribe are brave, they are not good at farming and weaving. I know. Oh yes, Prince Huangxi. Commander Yu, what's the matter? And according to my agreement with the great desolate god, we will help you survive in the endless forest. In exchange, you will give me a force of 5,000 people. I need the most valiant and ferocious desolate tribe warriors. Prince, can you help me choose? If you are willing, I will appoint you as the commander of this troop. Ah. Huangxi was overjoyed. Commander Yu, you are willing to let me personally lead the warriors? And the condition is that you have to choose the strongest 5,000 people for me. Don't worry, Huangxi will do it. Prince Huangxi imitated the human army and cupped his fists. Wei Chou could not help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Huangxi stared at him with his round eyes. Wei Chou waved his hand and held back his laughter. Nothing. Your Highness, do you have anything else? If not, you can leave now. Umph. Prince Huangxi turned around and cupped his fists at Lin Muyu. Then he walked out of the door with his head held high like a proud prince. Is there any news from Cangnan province? Lin Muyu watched Huangxi leave before she asked lightly. Wei Chao's expression was solemn. Yes, Qinfeng is planning to fill up the river. They plan to cut off the flow of the river and create a man-made dam. Then they will cross the river and attack the steel wall. Ah. Lin Muyu was stunned. She frowned and didn't say anything. Chapter 427. Commander, Situ Sen is back. Situ Sen's loud voice came from outside the commander's tent. Lin Muyu was overjoyed when she heard this voice and flew out to welcome him. Outside the tent, Wei Chou, Fengxi, Situ Shui and the others were all there. Situ Sen was still on his horse. He dismounted with his sword and cupped his hands respectfully. Situ Sen greets Commander. General Sen, how is the mission going? Lin Muyu smiled and asked. Commander, please look over there. Situ Sen pointed into the distance. There were carriages piled high with goods on the forest path. Situ Sen wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled excitedly. These bandits are really rich. We destroyed 5 bandit strongholds in 3 days and seized at least 700,000 gold coins. In addition, there are close to 500,000 jin of rations and all kinds of rare treasures. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Good, I will remember this great merit for you. Situ Shui smiled lightly. Brother, if there is something like this in the future, please call me along. I also want to make a contribution. Otherwise, Commander will think that I am just a freeloader. Good. Situ's son looked at Situ Shui dotingly. This gaze actually gave Lin Muyu the illusion that it was like the way Chu Huaying looked at Chu Yao. Perhaps all siblings in the world were like this? She couldn't help but feel emotional and her body trembled slightly. Commander Yu, are you alright? Situ Shui was surprised. I'm fine. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, General Sen has worked hard. I will set up a banquet for you in the tent tonight. Oh right, Prince Huangxi has already chosen 5,000 barbarian tribe elites. My plan can be carried out now. Where is Su Jiantao? Among the generals, Su Jiantao stepped forward and said, This general is here. Lin Muyu said, I'll have to trouble you this time. According to the height and physique of the barbarian warriors, make them a set of armor, a shield and a spear. After 2 hours, give me all the measurements and blueprints. Yes, your subordinate will do as you say. Su Jiantao's eyes were filled with confidence. Returning to the commander's tent, Lin Muyu sat in the commander's seat. There were pieces of parchment spread out in front of her. Brush, ink, paper and inkstone were also placed to the side. Wei Chou could not help but smile. Commander, you are still practicing calligraphy? How is this calligraphy? Lin Muyu smiled and explained, I'm compiling a martial arts manual. Martial tactics? Wei Chou was stunned. Yes. Lin Muyu raised her head and said, Wei Chou, Fengshi, General Sen, General Shui, have you heard of the art of taming beasts? No. Everyone shook their heads. Lin Muyu lightly waved her arm and activated her spiritual perception. Instantly, a spatial crack appeared in the corner of the tent. Then the Acatosaurus's huge body rushed out with a dragon's roar. It came to its master's side while wagging its huge tail. It looked at everyone with an indomitable dragon's might. Its brown eyes were filled with ruthlessness, as if the generals in front of it were ants. Wei Chou and the others had seen the Acatosaurus before, so they were not surprised. Instead, Situ Sen and Situ Shui were shocked. Situ Sen had already pulled out his sword and said, What the hell is this? Situ Shui's beautiful eyes were filled with shock and joy. Wow. This is the commander's pet? Yes. Lin Muyu did not deny it and said, In the past, taming pets was the exclusive right of the empire's nobles. They caught the cubs of spirit beasts and raised them from young. In fact, it was no different from raising a dog or a horse. They could not unleash the power of the spirit beasts to the peak. However, there was a book called The Art of Taming, which allowed the owner and the spirit beast to form a soul contract. Then they could fuse or even transform into armor, which greatly increased the coordination between the owner and the pet. When I was at Lingnan, it was all thanks to the Acatosaurus's fusion armor. Otherwise, I would not have been able to come back to see you. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the commander's story in shock. Lin Muyu sighed and said, It's a pity that the art of taming is too profound, and it is extremely difficult to get started. Only those who are extremely talented can understand a thing or two. However, I was fortunate enough to learn the long-lost soul pulse technique under Great Deacon Lei Hong's guidance, so I have a glimpse of the art of taming. It is also because of this that I have made up my mind to fuse the first volume of the soul pulse technique and the first 3 volumes of the art of taming to create a more simple and feasible beast taming technique. I will temporarily call it the art of beast taming. After I finish writing the martial arts manual and mental cultivation technique, I will pass it to all of you to read. After that, I plan to set up a beast taming department in the Holy Temple and create an army that can fuse all of their beasts into armor to increase the battle power of the Longdan army camp. Situ Sen's eyes lit up. Commander, are you really going to pass the art of beast taming to us? What else? Ah, this is a priceless treasure. If I were the commander, I would definitely charge a fee. 1,000 Jinyin coins per person as capital recovery. Damn, Situ Shui giggled and said, Commander, hurry up and write it. I can't wait to learn it. Yes, I will. In the afternoon, Su Jintao's drawing of the giant shield, spear and armor was completed. He immediately sent a letter to Lanyan City to Jin Xiaotang. Lin Muyu had given her a target of 5,000 sets of armor as soon as possible. The ironware shop under the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce must be very busy. Jin Xiaotang had worked hard during this period of time, but it could not be helped. 2 days later, the art of beast taming was completed. Wei Chou copied a few copies and passed them to the captaincy to study. Unfortunately, the spiritual beasts in the Endless Forest were not as abundant as in the Dragon-Seeking Forest, so they could not find spiritual beasts to experiment with. However, among the group of people, the siblings Situ Sen and Situ Shui were the most talented and comprehended the art the best. The afternoon spring breeze made people feel a little lazy. Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others rode on their war horses and patrolled around the camp. In the distance, the sound of Prince Huangshi training the barbarian tribe's warriors with shield attacks and spear stabs could be heard. The barbarians were all loud and their battle cries could be heard. Wei Chou frowned and said, Commander, when are we returning to the Empire? Are you also worried about the war between the Empire and the demon race? Lin Muyu asked. Yes, the opponent is the demon race. I can't help but worry. Let's wait a little longer. Lin Muyu looked at the barbarian tribe's camp in the distance with a worried expression and said, The barbarian tribe is not easy to deal with. That barbarian god of wilderness is even more arrogant and doesn't care about anyone. If we don't make proper arrangements for their camp and fields here, I'm afraid that once we leave they will turn against us. At that time, the Guardian Army and the demon race will inevitably be very passive. Is this also the reason why Lord Commander has been insisting on not giving weapons to the barbarian tribe? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. Unless they are barbarian warriors who have joined the Longdan army camp, we will absolutely not give them 1.5-star bronze, iron weapons, shields, etc. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the balance will change. I understand. Water the potato fields more. After the first batch of potatoes germinate, we will return to the Empire. After resupplying through Lanyan City, we will go straight to the demon race's battlefield. Yes. Lin Muyu turned to look at Tang Xiaoxi and said with a smile, Xiaoxi, will you also choose 50,000 elites from the demon race's army to go with me to Cangnan province? Tang Xiaoxi readily agreed, even if you don't ask, I will still stay by your side. Don't worry. In Cangnan province, the morning fog was getting thicker and thicker. The sound of the Rice River flowing in the fog was also becoming more intense. The demon race's river-filling tactic was changing the overall environment of this Rice River tributary. The morning fog turned into dew and fell on his shoulders. Feng Jixing carried his wind cutter and led the Imperial army to ride along the river. His face was full of anxiety as he said, check the catapults again. Is the black beach oil ready? It's ready, General Feng, please rest assured. We must defend to the death and not let the demon race easily come ashore. Yes. The night and fog were the demon race's natural protective barriers. It was taking advantage of this environment that allowed them to carry out the river-filling tactic step by step. The Imperial army couldn't do anything about it. Not far away, a messenger galloped over, cupped his hands and said, General Feng, there are signs of the demon race filling the river 7 miles away from here. They have already filled up the middle of the river. In addition, there are signs of the demon race filling the river in 4 places in the defensive area of Maple Ferry. Bastard. Feng Jixing turned around and pulled out his long saber. With a roar, the raging whirlwind dou qi around his body danced as he slashed at the dense fog. Instantly, flames spun out and blew away the dense fog that was close to 100 meters away. However, he saw that the dam built by the demon race was already less than 40 meters away from the shore. If it was any closer, the armor demon could even spread its wings and fly over to attack. Oh my god. Zhang Wei was dumbfounded, it's already so close. Forget it. Feng Jixing gritted his teeth and said, throw the black beach oil, burn it for me. The catapults on the shore were equipped with oil barrels. Ping 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 sounds were heard as the oil barrels were thrown out one after another. Immediately, oil barrels floated on the surface of the river. Feng Jixing didn't say anything and rushed out with his sword. His battle boots stepped on the surface of the water and didn't sink. With a spin of his sword, the blade chi smashed the oil barrels on the surface of the water. In the blink of an eye, the water was filled with black beach oil. He pulled back and raised his palm. The purple electric flame wolf roared unceasingly. With a light wave of his palm, the flames ignited and instantly spread out. The oil barrels on the surface of the water immediately exploded. In a moment, more than half of the dam was shrouded in flames. The miserable howls of the armor demon sounded especially pleasant. Zhang Wei couldn't help but laugh. Good burning. Good. Feng Jixing wasn't happy at all. He lightly said, Zhang Wei, after dusk, let all the soldiers on the shore return to the steel wall. Why did the commander give up the defense line? Yes. Feng Jixing let out a deep sigh. His eyes were filled with helplessness. What else can we do if we don't give up? Our black beach oil is extremely limited. There's no way we can continue to use it like this. The demon race's attack on the city is already inevitable. We can't let our brothers die in vain under the city wall. Relying on the steel wall, we can still be in an invincible position. Don't forget, our 500 million Jinin coins can't be spent in vain. Zhang Wei grinned. Commander, old Zhang understands. I'll go and do as you say. Have you told His Highness about the matter of retreating to the steel wall? His Highness has the same idea. All right, I'll go and pass the order. Chapter 428. The next day. The morning mist covered the middle of the towering ancient trees like a skirt, reducing the visibility of the entire jungle and the Rice River. When the rising sun pierced through the mist, all the soldiers on the city wall took a deep breath. To the east of the steel protective wall, there were swarms of armored demons. They had successfully crossed the river. Hua hua hua. The dark blue imperial war flag with the emblem of the purple flower was fluttering in the breeze. Qin Yin was wearing a neat female officer's military uniform and a delicate soft armor. She looked at the armor demon core under the parapet wall as she gently pressed her hand on the hilt of her purple sword, saying calmly, "Get ready for war." Feng Jixing raised his palm as the war drums thundered. On the city wall, numerous arrow boxes, ballistae were aimed at the direction of the armor demons. As long as the armor demons were under the city wall, they would be within the shooting range of the arrow boxes. After all, the parapet wall was only 200 m away from the riverbank. Even the archers on the city wall could shoot them. In a split second, the thick steel arrows were shot out along with the sound of the spring of the arrow boxes and shot into the crowd of armor demons. However, the armor demons remained motionless. All the armor demons in the front row were holding huge steel shields. However, the steel shields were so poor and thin that they couldn't even resist the penetration of steel arrows. As a result, the armor demons were shot to death by the arrow boxes in groups. However, each time an armor demon was killed, the armor demons in the rear would immediately walk forward and pick up their shields to build a shield wall. This time, the armor demon corps seemed to have changed a lot. They had started to learn the phalanx tactic to minimize the loss. What are they waiting for? Zhang Wei asked with a frown. They're waiting for the things behind. Feng Jixing's voice was icy. As expected, many siege towers and scaling ladders had been transported from the rear of the phalanx. They were their trump cards. Lingdong Province and Heavenspan Province were short of resources and iron ores. Therefore, demon shields were very thin. However, as the two provinces were covered with jungles, they didn't lack wood. Therefore, demons could have as many wooden siege weapons as they wanted. He's here. Feng Jixing slowly pulled out his wind cutter and said, "Prepare to fight." The melee soldiers on the city wall pulled out their weapons one after another, each of them wearing a dignified expression. For many of them, this was the first time they had fought against the demon race, and they had never thought that there would be such a day. Creak, creak, an unpleasant sound came from the siege tower's axle as it slowly rose up. Feng Jixing immediately turned to the soldiers who were using the ballistae and said, "Destroy it." The ballista took aim and with a ping sound, a huge rock fell on the tower. Unfortunately, it only shook a little and couldn't be destroyed. Damn it. Feng Jixing raised his saber and rushed down. His whole body was covered with whirlwind fighting light. His martial spirit roared and fell into the group of armor demons. He suddenly waved his long saber and the hot sand-scorching metal smashed the bodies of several armor demons. The windcutter saber was a sacred weapon that could destroy everything. In the blink of an eye, Feng Jixing arrived at the bottom of the tower like a bolt of lightning. He leaped up and struck out with the Devil Blade Devourer. Boom! In the strong light, the huge siege tower was turned into powder by the power of Feng Jixing's saber. However, this attack also consumed a lot of do qi from Feng Jixing. His face was slightly pale as he continuously killed several armor demons with his saber. When he turned around, a heavy battle axe was slashed in front of him. It was the attack of an armor demon general. Clang! The windcutter saber blocked the attack. The huge force forced Feng Jixing to retreat quickly. After knocking over several armor demons, he came to the steel wall and jumped up to the top of the city. Zhang Wei threw down a rope and said, "Commander, come up quickly." Feng Jixing grabbed the rope. The sound of the weapons thrown by the armor demons hitting the wall came from all around him. His back became heavier and he couldn't help but feel a sweetness in his throat. However, he held it back and didn't let the blood flow out from the corner of his mouth. His face was slightly pale. Qin Yin hurriedly came over and asked, "General Feng, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Feng Jixing waved his hand and said with his head lowered, "The battle strength of the armor demons is indeed very terrifying." Xiahou Sang raised his long saber and said, "Commander, they are about to attack." "I know." Feng Jixing raised his head and regained his confidence. He said, "Don't stop the arrow boxes and ballistae. I want to see how many armor demons there are for us to kill." "Yes." Below the city, the corpses of the armor demons were piled up one after another. However, their siege towers and scaling ladders were still advancing. Finally, the iron hook of the first siege tower was hung on the battlement of the city wall. The iron plate suddenly fell down, and a dozen armor demons in the siege tower immediately rushed up to the city wall with their weapons in hand. The battle axe swept across, and the heads of two Empire soldiers immediately flew up. "Get out of the way." Qin Yin's voice came from the chaotic crowd. With a flash of sword light, the head of the armor demon was cut off. Qin Yin was surrounded by true dragon god binding chains. Facing the siege of a dozen armor demons, she suddenly danced with her sword and flew in the air. The first style of the Dragon Slayer formula, reverse dragon spin. The sword light filled with the divine power of the god binding chains flew everywhere. A dozen armor demons were chopped into pieces. This lethality was really amazing. When Du Hai stepped into the Saint Realm, his attack was probably far inferior to that of the current Qin Yin, who was at the third heaven of the Heaven Realm. Destroy it. Chu Chu's voice came from the sky. A flaming palm fell and directly turned the siege tower into powder. With a fire cauldron martial spirit around his body, Chu Chu looked coldly at the dense armor demon army below the city wall. He suddenly waved his palms, and fire palms full of raging flames fell on the ground. It was like a purge. Facing absolute power, the armor demons could only howl miserably in the sea of fire and wait for death. Spear throw. Qin Yan's voice came from the crowd. The reorganized Imperial Army also joined the battle. Hundreds of spears were thrown down together, piercing the armor demons that had lost their defensive ability and were riddled with holes. However, on the city wall not far away, there were armor demons climbing up the protective wall from the ladders and fighting with the human soldiers. The battle on and below the city wall had already turned into a mess. Feng Jixing carried his saber and rushed around, tearing apart the armor demons that rushed up the city wall one by one. Finally, the fighting energy in his body could no longer control this kind of intense attack. With a miserable groan, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Protect the commander. Zhang Wei waved his steel saber and cut off the head of an armor demon. However, he was immediately sent flying by the blunt saber of another armor demon. He fell on the battlement in a sorry state. Feeling a chill behind him, Feng Jixing hurriedly said, "Lower your head." Zhang Wei subconsciously lowered his body, only to see a broadsword sweep across and cut off his helmet. Fortunately, he dodged in time, or else his head would have been separated from his body. A few Imperial soldiers bravely stepped forward and pierced their swords into the body of the armor demon that had almost taken Zhang Wei's life, sending it down the metal protective wall. Keep shooting arrows. Quickly clean them up. Feng Jixing carried his wind cutter and continued to join the battle. In the distance, Qin Yin's shoulders were already stained with a lot of blood. Some belonged to the armor demons and some belonged to the human soldiers. However, she didn't retreat. Her long sword was surrounded by the power of the golden god binding lock, and it sliced the bodies of the armor demons apart. Meanwhile, Chu Chu was protecting the Empress by her side, constantly eliminating threats for her. The fierce battle continued until dusk. The entire metal protective wall seemed to be stained red with blood. Finally, the demon race stopped attacking the city. It seemed that their military strength was insufficient. A group of demon race only raised their shields 200 meters away from the east of the metal protective wall, blocking the arrows and crossbows. There were corpses everywhere on the city wall, and the ground looked as if it had been washed with blood. Feng Jixing carefully stepped on the blood-covered bricks and said, "Order the arrow boxes and crossbows to stop shooting. Save one arrow." Yes. Zhang Wei immediately went to pass the order. Feng Jixing continued to ask, "How many arrows did we use today?" Luo Yu, the deputy commander, said, "Sir, the arrow boxes were specially made to use up a lot of energy. Just today we used up nearly 20% of the arrows. Furthermore, the demon race is guarding outside the city, so we have no chance to retrieve the arrows." Got it? Feng Jixing's gaze was heavy. Move the corpses of the dead soldiers to the west of the city and bury them at night. Yes. Feng Jixing walked down the walkway in disappointment. Inside the fortress, Qin Yin was washing her hands. Her hands were already stained with blood. It seemed that all the generals on the city wall today were the same. As long as they were strong enough, they were fighting. "General Feng, how is it?" Qin Yin turned around and sat on the Empress's seat. "The losses are great." Feng Jixing frowned. "The specific numbers are not out yet, but at least tens of thousands of people have died in battle." Got it? After nightfall, the demon race won't attack again, right? No, if they attack, we can only use fire to defend. Outside, Xiang Yu walked in with a group of Qihai city generals covered in blood and said, "The main force of the Qianfeng Corps is at the ferry at Shanlin Town, and the other crossings are just a nuisance." It seems that General Feng didn't guess wrong. Qianfeng wants to attack the fortress at Shanlin Town's ferry. "Marquis Pingnan has worked hard," Qin Yin said. Xiang Yu hurriedly cupped his hands and said respectfully, "This subordinate is working hard for the nation. It's worth it." That night, the demon race didn't make any big movements. The next day it was foggy again. Feng Jixing stood on the city wall, and his face was full of anxiety. Even the heavens were helping the demon race. It was very strange that there would actually be a foggy day in spring, and it lasted for nearly a month. In the distance he could faintly hear the sounds of digging soil and building a city, but he didn't know what the demon race was doing. Until noon, when the sun had dispersed the fog, he could see that the demon race had already built a 3-meter-high wall along the Daojiang River. It looked like it was a series of walls that stretched for nearly 5 kilometers. What are they trying to do? Zhang Wei grinned and said, "The demon race is ridiculous." Chapter 429. On the 4th day of the 4th month, year 7735, Lin Muyu led the Longdan army camp and 5,000 barbarian warriors out of the endless forest and returned to Lanyan City. The entire army set up camp at the Longdan army camp outside the city and rested for the night. Starlight shrouded Lanyan City. Lin Muyu looked at the majestic Lanyan City from afar, but she also knew that Qin Yin and Chu Yao were not in the city. The demon clan had invaded, and Qin Yin had personally led the troops. As the chief deacon of the spiritual medicine department, Chu Yao had personally gone to take care of the logistics of transporting medicine and other miscellaneous matters. Rows of carriages sped over under the starlight, escorted by the staff of the temple. In the distance, Jin Xiaotang had already jumped down from her horse and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, all the tasks have been completed. These are 5,000 giant armors, 5,000 spears and conical steel shields. We used more than 40 ironware workshops in Lanyan City to complete them." Really? Lin Muyu was extremely excited. She walked forward and lifted the black cloth on one of the carriages. Sure enough, the spears and shields were suffused with a moving luster under the moonlight. "Xiaotang, you've been a great help," Lin Muyu said sincerely. Jin Xiaotang pouted and said, I've already stopped the business of the merchant guild. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to supply these weapons, provisions and so on. Brother Yu, you can't squeeze me anymore in the next few months. I want to properly manage the business of the Purple Flower Merchant Guild and make it prosper day by day." "All right." Lin Muyu nodded readily and ordered, "Prince Huangxi, have the barbarian warriors carry the weapons and shields." "Yes." Huangxi's face was filled with excitement. Although the warriors of the Great Wildlands tribe were extremely strong, all of them used stone weapons. Their lethality was extremely limited, not to mention that their bodies were covered in armor. The carts of spears, shields and armor were simply priceless treasures to the Wildlands tribe. They were more precious than anything else. Lin Muyu picked up a long spear and touched the edge of the spear. She remained silent. Jin Xiaotang smiled and said, "The edge of this spear was tempered and polished, so it's a bit sharper than the weapons of the average imperial soldier. I think," she looked at those tall and sturdy barbarian warriors and said, "I think with the physique and strength of these giant warriors, the sharpness of these spears is enough to penetrate the shell of an armored demon." "Well, that's good. Thank you, Xiaotang. Stay and have supper with me tonight. Tomorrow the Longdan army camp will be moved to the steel fence. I wonder how the situation there is." Jin Xiaotang's brows slightly knit as she said, "It is not optimistic." 2 days ago Yu's letter was sent back and the news was that the demon race had crossed the Rice River and directly attacked the steel protective wall. The Empire's army suffered heavy casualties and those demon race seem to have gone crazy. Once the steel protective wall is unable to hold, one fear that Songnan province would vanish in a moment. "Yeah." Lin Muyu muttered to herself for a moment, then said, let's go eat supper." "Okay." After entering the camp, Jin Xiaotang's eyes widened as she looked at everything in the Longdan army camp. The life in the army camp was very novel to her. Far away beside a bonfire, a beautiful young lady was roasting a deer leg. She was wearing a luxurious cloak and with one look, one would know who she was. Jin Xiaotang immediately bowed respectfully and said with a smile, "This commoner girl Jin Xiaotang greets Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi turned around and smiled, "Xiaotang? No need to stand on ceremony. Come. Let's eat together." "And thank you, Princess Shi." At this time Wei Chou, Situ Sen, Situ Shui and the other captaincy-level generals also came over and sat in a circle around the bonfire. Wei Chou frowned and said, "Commander, the steel protective wall is in a state of emergency. How about, we march through the night?" "No." Lin Muyu shook her head lightly, "We rushed all the way from the Forest of Infinity to Lanyan City. Everyone is exhausted and the warhorses need rest. We must have a good sleep tonight. Otherwise, even if the Longdan army camp reaches the steel protective wall, they won't have much combat power. I can't let everyone die for nothing. Eat quickly and sleep after eating. Yes, Commander. At night, the camp was bustling with people shouting and horses neighing. This time, Lin Muyu brought a total of nearly 110,000 soldiers, including 5,000 barbarian tribe soldiers, 50,000 demon tribe soldiers, and 50,000 Longdan army camp soldiers. In terms of combat power, they could be considered the best among the few large armies in the empire. Lin Muyu also hoped that this army could bring a bright future to the empire. After eating and sending off Jin Xiaoteng, Lin Muyu stood outside the commander's tent and breathed in and out, refining the power of stars. The starlight in the entire empire seemed to have dimmed a lot. She closed her eyes and let the starlight fall on her body and slowly seep into her flesh. Thoughts flew in Lin Muyu's mind. Ever since she came to this continent, she was first chased by mercenaries in Silver Fir City, then by Jin Yifun's men in Lanyan City, then by Divine Lord Luo Lan when the Iha Kingdom rebelled. After that, she was resurrected with the help of the Demon Emperor and suffered a crushing defeat in Winterfrost City. She could be said to be the most miserable transmigrator in thousands of years, right? If one's fist wasn't strong enough, all the lofty words and ambitions were fake. But now, she had already stepped into the Saint Realm, and she had the 110,000 heroes behind her. It was time to show her ambition. Sensing the vigorous power of stars in her body, Lin Muyu felt that the fighting aura in her dantian was overflowing, and the two martial souls in her will see, the seven luminaries' holy gourd and the god-binding chains, were shrouded in a pale blue light, suffused with faint starlight. It was the nebula fighting aura. I've already stepped into the middle stage of the first heaven of the Saint Realm. The next step is to continue raising my cultivation and cultivate the nebula fighting aura into the radiant sun fighting aura, which all Saint Realm experts are most proud of. At that time, I'll be close to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, and breaking through to the second layer of the Saint Realm is just a matter of time. With a satisfied smile on his face, he couldn't help but smile. He turned around and lifted the curtain to enter the commander's tent, only to see that on the other bed in the tent, Tang Xiaoxi was already sleeping peacefully. Her sleeping face was very beautiful and her breathing was even. Her body was covered by a princess's cloak, and a wisp of starlight fell on her face, making her look indescribably beautiful. Lin Muyu gently pulled the cloak, covering Tang Xiaoxi's exposed snow-white arm, then turned around and went to her own bed, leisurely falling asleep. The high-ranking generals in the Longdan army camp all knew how close Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu were, and there was actually nothing wrong with the two of them sleeping in the same tent. After all, the empire was in chaos and powerful enemies were everywhere. Whether it was the Iha country or the demon race, they all wished for Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi to die. It was also expected that they would send people to assassinate them. Therefore, it was also good for the two of them to stay together and take care of each other. After a night of deep sleep, dreams were endless. The dreams were red and green, and countless past events flew past one by one. When Lin Muyu woke up, drops of dew were dripping from the tent, landing on her cheeks. Tang Xiaoxi also slowly woke up. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Lin Muyu, then looked at her own hair, stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, "I want to comb my hair first. Can Mu help me?" Okay. Lin Muyu also helped Qinin comb her hair, and this feeling was still vivid in her mind. Tang Xiaoxi's hair was soft, and strands of black hair slid in the palm, making people feel intoxicated. Not long after, the war drums rumbled outside, and the three armies set off. In the Tsangnan province, the war was still in full swing, and the sound of war drums was endless. This was already the 7th day since the demon race attacked the steel protective wall. The Empire army relied on the steel protective wall to resist the demon race for 7 days and 7 nights, and they were not defeated. The city wall was full of crisscross traces of sabers and axes. Although the demon race's catapults were clumsy, the huge rocks smashing on the city wall were still chilling. Feng Jixing, carrying the bloody wind cutter, walked step by step through the pile of corpses, frowned and said, "Treat the wounded as soon as possible." Zhang Wei's voice choked for a moment and said, "Commander, our imperial army has lost nearly 10,000 brothers. Moreover, Great Deacon Chu Yao's side has also run out of medicine. Last night, dozens of brothers died of pain." Feng Jixing's face was full of fatigue, and the smoke of war had blackened his originally handsome face. The white imperial forest cloak draped behind him was also covered with gun holes and sword marks. He murmured, "In short, do your best to fight." The steel protective wall cannot be lost, otherwise, Songnan province will be finished. How many arrows do we still have? Luo Yu cupped her fists and said, enough for a day. The demon race has picked up all the arrows under the city wall, these despicable things. Feng Jixing supported Ji Qi, looking at the demon race's earth wall that was continuously rising in height in the distance, and said, what is Qian Feng thinking? What is their intention in building this wall? I still can't understand. Zhang Wei said, if you can't understand, then don't think about it. At this time, Xiahou Sang cupped his fists and said, Commander, this subordinate has just received intelligence from the scouts. Qian Feng's army has a total of 170,000, and in 7 days and 7 nights, they have lost nearly 40,000 armor demons, and nearly 90,000 armor demons, as well as 40,000 winged people, high-level demons, and other miscellaneous troops. In addition, Qian Feng is personally leading the battle, and the demon race's central camp is located near Lake Lu. It is said, there are many enslaved humans there and some high-level demons, all of them female. Female demons? Feng Jixing was taken aback. What's their background? It's the demon royal family. Our scouts have captured several human slaves, and from them, we learned that a group of high-level demons has also come to the battlefield, as if they want to see the spectacular scene of the demon race attacking the city. Damn it. Feng Jixing's face was ashen, his clear eyes looking at the generals beside him, suddenly clenching his fists. It seems we have to take a risk this time. Commander, please give the order. The generals cupped their fists together. Feng Jixing looked at the crowd, saying, Luo Yu, you are the calmest and smartest among the Imperial Army's captaincy-level generals. I order you to lead 3,000 Imperial Army elite cavalry to our naval port at night, and transfer 20 warships into the main Rice River basin. Remember, you can only move in the morning fog at night and travel along the west bank of Rice River. Once you reach Lake Lu, immediately go ashore and launch a surprise attack on the demon race's grain camp. Only burn it without fighting and disrupt the demon race's supply line. If possible, capture a few demon royal family members and bring them back to the imperial capital. Yes, Commander. Luo Yu's face was covered in blood, raising his head to look at Feng Jixing, his eyes filled with determination. Even if I die in battle, I will not disappoint Commander's expectations. No. Feng Jixing placed his hand on his shoulder, saying, I have given you all the Imperial Army cavalry, and I want you to bring everyone back alive. You must do this and don't talk to me about failure. This battle you can only win, not lose. Yes. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.